This is Atomic Shinobi, and today I'm going to narrate a movie on what if Naruto was abandoned by Kakashi in the Valley of the End. If you enjoy this video, please like, share, and subscribe to this channel. Now, wasting no more time, let's start the story.
In the Valley of the End, Naruto and Sasuke were perched atop the statues, each holding a single-handed jutsu. Naruto holding Rasengan, Sasuke holding Chidori. Naruto was still bleeding profusely from the cut Sasuke had made in his chest. Maintaining his stance, Naruto scowled at his supposed closest friend across the valley. Taking a moment longer, they launched themselves at each other, their jutsus leading the way until they collided, causing a sphere of destruction that vaporized the flowing water and caused earthquakes beneath it. Two nearly lifeless bodies dropped flat on their backs next to each other as the sphere began to disappear. Both were injured. Sasuke had some deep cuts on his chest and abdomen, and Naruto had several cuts on his arms and torso that were causing his bleeding to become even more severe. Naruto's hole had also gotten bigger. They both lay there, unable to move or utter another word as they just stood there with the rain pelting their bodies. A few minutes later, a team of medical professionals arrived at the scene of the accident. They hurried to Sasuke as soon as they got close to the two, tending to his wounds and using their power to stop the bleeding. One of the medics placed him over his shoulders as they were finished with him. "What about the other one?" asked a medic while glancing at Naruto. "Let that devil perish. It is better for the village without him." The second medic said. "Yes. This demon has killed many people, and we almost lost our Uchiha. Allow his blood to choke him." As the final medic delivered a forceful kick to Naruto's ribs, blood spurted out of his mouth. "Okay. Let's go before Uchiha's state gets worse." With Sasuke resting on his shoulders, the medic spoke. Naruto was left in a pool of blood as they departed the Valley of End. The group soon encountered Kakashi, who was approaching them. "Where's Naruto?" he asked right away, not noticing the blonde nearby. "The rain obscured his footprints, so when we got there, he ran away. We could not locate him. However, we were able to save the Uchiha." The first medic spoke to Kakashi, whose expression didn't appear to turn dejected. "Permit him to go to his desired location. He is not needed in the village," said Kakashi, taking Sasuke from the doctor and heading into the village with the doctors in tow. "We tell the village people that Naruto died, but we couldn't find his body when they ask what happened here. Recognized?" With a sharp voice, Kakashi said, and the medics simply nodded. While waiting for Naruto was in shock at what had just transpired. The village that he pledged to defend had abandoned him, allowing him to perish. He closed his eyes and waited peacefully for his death, a tear falling down his cheek as he thought of all the people he loved, including Iruka, Sakura, Tsunade, Jiraiya, and everyone else, and that he would never see them again. "Hey kid, don't you dare die and keep your eyes open," said a loud voice that belonged to Kyuubi inside his head. "What's your desire, furball?" Naruto answered. "Remember, I die too if you die. Now get up and show us what life you still have," Kyuubi said, winking behind the bars of his cell. "Which life ought I to portray? The one where I was betrayed by my village? Whoa, that's going to end soon. After some time, at least, you will be reborn," Naruto said. "I refuse to let this occur. Kid, I'm not going to let you die. You really owe me after this." Kyuubi spoke as he began forcing all of his chakra into Naruto's body through the bars. The seal was unable to contain the power he was sending through, and as a result, the gates of his prison burst open, allowing him to finally walk freely within his own thoughts. He hasn't stopped sending chakra to Naruto yet. "Kyuubi, what are you doing?" said Naruto just before he let out a scream due to a powerful chakra entering his body. "Kid, I am merging with you. You will either die from this or survive it. You have nothing to lose in your current situation," Kyuubi said. Despite the fact that Naruto's wound was healing, he was still screaming in agony because of the overdose of chakra. The chakra stream soon stopped, and the Kyuubi shrank to the point where he was no longer as formidable as a creature. Instead, he resembled a dog. Naruto stood up after a short while, his body beginning to move once more. Looking down at his body, he saw that he had changed somewhat as a result of the merging. His muscles were now more defined and fuller, and he stood a little taller than before. He looked at his face as he walked up to a puddle of water. His eyes were dark blue, His fangs were more prominent, and his hair had turned a darker shade of red. Not quite as red as Gar's, more like an orange and red. To confirm that it was real, he touched his face. "What did you do to me, Kyuubi?" questioned Naruto. "I prevented you from dying. After this, you really owe me a big honor," the Kyuubi said. Naruto said, "Anyway, let's head back to the village," and began to move. "We are unable to return there. Not yet, at least," Kyuubi said, forcing Naruto to stop. "What are you envisioning?" Naruto said. "You should first become stronger by training with your new body and abilities. I will personally train you, and when you're ready, we'll return there. However, until then, you follow my instructions and do as I say." Kyuubi uttered harsh words. "Now, where should we go?" Naruto said. "I'll show you where to live and train in peace if you follow my instructions," Kyuubi said. Now that's resolved. Naruto seized the headband bearing the Konoha symbol. He drew a line across the symbol with a kunai and placed it on his forehead. He did as Kyuubi had instructed and began to walk in the prescribed manner. Konoha Gates. When Kakashi and the other members of that mission arrived back in Konoha, a sizable contingent of medical professionals and ninjas awaited them. The moment they entered the gates, the medical staff hurried to gather up all the injured, load them onto carts, and drag them to the hospital. With a grin on her face, Sakura was shown to the hospital by Kakashi after she had placed Sasuke on a cart. Right before him, Tsunade and Hinata materialized. "Kakashi, where's Naruto?" asked Kakashi for Tsunade. "Lady Hokage, I apologize. Except for a sizable blood pool, our deceased relative's body was nowhere to be discovered and he left no indications," declared Kakashi. Tsunade's eyes welled with tears as Hinata lost it at that very moment, collapsing to the floor with barely a word out of her mouth. "Naruto is dead. Kyuubi, are we almost there?" declared Naruto, who had been following Kyuubi's instructions for almost a day. "We're almost there. All that's left to do is cross this little sea by foot." Kyuubi said this while dozing off on the floor of Naruto's mindscape. "Why would I cross a sea by foot?" As he took his first steps in the water, Naruto spoke. "Since I said so," Kyuubi said, closing his eyes. Naruto simply sighed, obeyed, and carried on with his quest. It took him a few more hours to finally make out land in the distance. He hurried to get there because he was tired of walking and started to run. His feet were planted firmly on the ground within minutes, and he took a deep breath. "Awaken, Furball. We appear to be here." Naruto woke up the beast, he said. "Yes. Thus it appears. It's time to get started now," said Kyuubi, waking up completely and stretching. When he managed to get Naruto exactly where he wanted him, he grinned. Konoha, 3.5 years later. Unnoticed by the guards at the gates, a figure wearing a long black coat around his body and a hood covering his eyes entered Konoha village. He kept to himself as he strolled through Konoha's streets, noting that not much had changed but that the people's expressions had brightened since his last visit. He continued walking until he arrived at Ichiraku's ramen stand, his favorite spot in the entire village. He laughed a little and continued walking, not believing that this was the appropriate place to stop. Shortly afterward, as he passed a bar, he noticed a face that was both familiar and strange at the same time. He recognized someone by the pale eyes and dark blue hair, but the person he was staring at didn't resemble the person he remembered. Additionally, he saw that she was adding more sake to her cup while standing in front of a few empty sake bottles in the booth. He made the decision to go closer to her, opening the bar doors and going inside. Before long, he arrived at that particular booth. "You mind if I join you?" Naruto spoke to the girl. "Yes. Please take a seat," the girl said, gesturing to the open space across from her. As he sat down, Naruto said, "Thank you. So what brings a stranger like you to a shitty place like this?" As she drank another cup of sake, the girl said, "Just some business I have to take care of," Naruto said as he filled a cup for himself and grabbed the sake bottle. "Whatever you need to do, get it done quickly, and get out of here. This location is the epitome of corruption and nonsense." The girl spoke to the stranger wearing a hood. "What motivates you to say that? It's possible that all the alcohol you drank has made you inebriated." As he took a second sip of sake, Naruto said, "I say this because the one person I have ever loved was killed in this village. And while he dedicated his life to defending this village, they simply ignored him, treating him like trash. The girl spoke, her body seized by rage and grief. I apologized to her for it. But who was the man you had a crush on? Asked a curious Naruto. His name was Naruto Uzumaki. The girl spoke loudly enough to draw attention from the others when she mentioned that name. Naruto was surprised to hear this. He believed that everyone in the village despised him, but this girl actually loved him. And if you don't mind, could you tell me your name? Wanting to wrap up his ideas about this girl's identity, Naruto said. Hinata is my name. Only Hinata. Don't ask, I don't have a surname anymore. Said Hinata. Now, everything made sense to Naruto. Hinata Hyuga, the heir to the Hyuga clan, was the woman who was always in love with him. But why, of all people, would she love him? He took her hand and, with the flick of his bat, they were out of sight from the bar and into the forest, leaving some cash on the table for the drinks. As soon as the man in front of her approached her with his hands raised, Hinata went into defensive mode. Relax, I am not here to hurt you. Naruto said as he walked carefully toward her. What made you bring me here, then? The only sensible course of action is to murder me. With her posture unsteady from the alcohol, Hinata spoke. What gives you the impression that I wouldn't have killed you by now if I had wanted to? I swear I won't hurt you, but first allow me to remove this alcohol from your system. Naruto said. And how would you do that and why? Stated Hinata. Because I intend to tell you something that requires sobriety. And this is how I would go about it. Naruto said as he teleported behind her and applied a little pressure to a point on her back, causing her to immediately throw up. When she had finished vomiting, she got to her feet and used a handkerchief to slap her mouth. When she was finished, she straightened up and turned to face the enigmatic man. What do you want to tell me now that I am sober? Said Hinata. Rather than say anything, he pushed his hood back and unbuttoned his coat, allowing it to drop to the floor. Do you recognize me? Naruto spoke while flexing his muscles and spreading his arms wide. Hinata looked at him. His eyes were blue and his hair was dark orange, but she recognized him instantly. Observing 3 whisker marks on each cheek, she moved in love. There was only one guy with those whisker marks that she had ever known, but it couldn't be him. He had passed away. You remind me of the guy the first once loved, but you can't be him because he passed away. Who exactly are you? Glancing at him, she said. Maybe this mark will tell it for me. Said Naruto, standing atop his hard muscles and raising his shirt to reveal a spiral seal on his stomach. That's not possible. No. Not at all. This is just a mental illusion. You've passed away. My mind is playing tricks on me. I've gone insane. With a grab on her head, Hinata dropped to her knees. Hinata, this is not a dream. It's me, for sure. My name is Uzumaki Naruto. Placing his hands on her shoulders and drawing her in close, he spoke. He felt her cry on his shirt and put his arms around her, massaging her back while she wept on his shoulder. She eventually came to a halt, raised her face, and gave him a brief glance. Why didn't you come back immediately? She claimed to have red eyes from crying. If I came back that time, the ones who left me for dead would have finished their job on me. Holding her close, he said. But where have you been all this time? She asked again. I was training at a place far away, which I learned that belonged to me. Naruto said. It is no longer relevant. You've returned. She gave him a hug in return. My stay here won't last long. As soon as my work here is done, I'm going to leave. But would you do me a favor when I leave? Naruto spoke, raising her chin to meet his. I would do anything for you. With confidence, she said. I want you to come with me, to the place where I and some other people like me live. Naruto said, crassing her tear. Stained cheek. I'll be happy to come. Not only did this village screw you, but it also screwed me. And not only as a result of that. Cradling on his neck, she said. I'm grateful, Hinata. For consenting to it. Gazing directly into her eyes, he said. And for loving me. He said, bending toward her until their faces were barely visible. They remained that way for a while before suddenly leaning in and sharing a straightforward but intense kiss. Naruto moved her bangs away from her face and noticed something he wished he hadn't noticed as they continued to kiss. He broke off the kiss right away, turning to face her while she hung her head. "Where did you get that?" With his fists clenched in rage, Naruto spoke. "I was broken after your death. I lacked the strength to fight or train. To force me to train harder, my father beat me until I struck him back once and made the decision to leave the clan. They sealed my Byakugan with the birdcage seal so I could leave. I can't use my Byakugan and I no longer have a surname." Hinata spoke, her eyes welling up once more. "I am going to fuck that bastard to death. Along with everyone who was involved in my departure. I swear to you that," Naruto said while encircling her in his arms. "And I will find a way to take that seal away from you," finished Naruto, giving her another kiss. For some time, they remained in that position, but eventually Naruto realized it was getting late and had to depart. "You can't leave." He was interrupted by Hinata. "I can't just stroll through the village trying to find somewhere to stay. I have to stay outside in an inn somewhere." As he put on his cape, he said. Hinata, who hadn't blushed or stammered in 3 years, said, "I wouldn't mind. If you stayed in my place. I don't want to disturb you." Naruto said to her. "It's all right. I have lots of space in my apartment because I live alone." Hinata said, blushing once more. "If you say so, then I can't refuse your invitation," Naruto said, giving her a cheek kiss and encircling her in his arms. In a short while, he teleported to the top of the Hokage Mountain's fourth face. "Now point where your apartment is." As Hinata pointed to an apartment with a balcony to the south. "West of the village," he said to her. Grasping her firmly, he teleported back to that balcony. He released her to let her open the door and let them in. Naruto's stomach rumbled as they stepped inside. He admitted that he was hungry by rubbing it. After putting on an apron, Hinata started preparing dinner for the two of them right away. He asked her permission to use the shower while she was cooking. He'd taken a long shower, and by the time he emerged from the bathroom, his upper body was bare except for a towel wrapped around his waist. Hinata noticed him as soon as he entered the living room, blushing red from staring at his flawless muscles. She was startled, though, to see that he had multiple kanji writings on his arms and chest that appeared to be somewhat related to one another. She dismissed those ideas with a shake of her head, and they shared their meal once Naruto had dressed. Now that night had come, it was time to turn in. Before Naruto spoke, they were discussing their plans for going to bed. "I will take the couch for the night, you can sleep in your room," Naruto said. "In actuality, my bed can accommodate 2 people. We can divide it up easily. It would be cozier." Hinata blushed as she realized she would be sharing a bed with Naruto. "All right, then. You are free to make a change now. I'll wait here until you let me know when you're ready," Naruto said while perched on the couch leg. "All right. Yes, I will." After saying so, she closed the door to her room and went inside. "OMG, not only Naruto is not dead, but I got to kiss him and now I am sleeping with him." Excitedly, Hinata told herself as she undressed. "Hinata, calm down. It's not as though we intend to take any action. All he needs is somewhere to stay." She gave herself a quick slap. She reached into the closet for a nightgown and removed her everyday attire. She placed it over her panties and took a quick glance in the mirror. She moved her hands behind her to undo her bra and pull it away, setting it at her dresser, blushing tomato red as she finished fixing her hair. Shortly after, she let Naruto in after he had changed into shorts and a tank top. Naruto was able to see Hinata's body as soon as the door opened. He twisted to the side, fighting back the urge to get an erection as he wiped the blood from his nose. As Hinata entered the bed first and covered herself with blankets, Naruto entered the bed directly behind her on the opposite side. Hinata kept her back to him as he turned to face her. He began to close his eyes as soon as he sensed her drawing nearer and nestling into his arms. Grinning broadly, he drew her in closer, encircling her in his arms and planting a peck on her cheek. Naruto said, "Good night, Hinata." "Good night to you too, Naruto." Hinata closed her eyes to sleep with a happy sigh. It didn't take long for Hinata to fall asleep soundly and look happy, but Naruto was having trouble falling asleep. He was always formulating a scheme to find out who had betrayed him and to get the birdcage seal out of Hinata's possession. The first person to wake up was Naruto. When he opened his eyes, he became aware of the various environments surrounding him. A weight settled across his chest. Glancing down, he noticed Hinata soundly and contentedly sleeping with her head resting on his chest. With haste, he pulled a pillow under her head and left the bedroom, entering the living room. He made the decision to make Hinata some breakfast in appreciation for her hospitality as he was getting dressed. After that, he made his way to the kitchen to gather the supplies he required. He got to work in the kitchen. Following an hour, when Hinata opened her eyes, the spot where Naruto had been the previous evening was deserted. Not him, but just a pillow. She wondered if she was dreaming when she woke up from the events of yesterday. Her face fell and she was on the verge of tears, thinking that it was probably the case, when she smelled something delicious coming from the kitchen. Raising her head, she followed the scent into the kitchen, where she saw Naruto clearing the dishes off the table. She hurried over to him right away and gave him a strong back hug because she didn't want to let him go for even a moment. "Hinata, good morning," Naruto said. "I decided to cook as a thank you for last night. I believe that yesterday was a dream because I couldn't find you close to me. I feared losing you once more." Hinata spoke, her eyes beginning to water, her hands tightening around him. "Hinata, I promise never to abandon you. That's what I promised you." Naruto turned around and gave her a look. "Let's eat now, and please stop crying. It will grow chilly," Naruto said, giving her a forehead kiss and guiding her to her seat. Hinata was amazed at his culinary skills as they sat down to eat. She finished the entire dish because she loved every bite of her meal. "Where did you learn how to cook like this?" asked Hinata. "I was alone for some time, so I had to figure out how to survive." As he too finished his meal, Naruto said, "Will you tell me what you did these 3.5 years away?" stated Hinata. "Everything went well, Hinata. I promise not to reveal anything to you just now." As he picked up the dishes and placed them in the sink, Naruto said, "I'm going to shower now. You are exempt from doing the dishes. I'll take care of them later." As Hinata made her way to her bedroom and then the restroom, she said. Water running was soon audible. In the meantime, Naruto created a clone and assigned him to clean up while he opened a map of Konoha and began to examine it. He measured the distance between Hinata's residence and the archive as well as its location. He was trying to figure out how to get there covertly and return here without drawing unwanted attention to himself. There were undoubtedly dozens of Anbu watching that area. A set of arms encircled him as he became preoccupied with some sort of scheme. He looked up to see Hinata with her hair wrapped in a towel and wearing a bathrobe. "What are you doing with this?" Hinata said, turning to face the map. "I intend to break into the archive of the city. However, I want to make it as covert as possible and limit the number of bodies to 0. However, I'm at a loss for how to go about it," declared Naruto, glancing at the map. "Well, you were Konoha's most cunning person. And consider this. How did you avoid being discovered?" Grinning, Hinata spoke to him. "Transformation Jutsu," Naruto said as he stood up and gave Hinata a hug. "Hinata, you are a genius." Pulling her in close, Naruto kissed her on the lips. He gave her a passionate kiss while removing the towel that was wrapped around her hair and letting it fall over her shoulders. They kept kissing and playing with her hair until they ran out of air to breathe. "Thank you, Hinata," Naruto said, planting a final kiss on her lips. "Happy I could be of assistance. When will you be completing this task?" stated Hinata. Naruto said, his expression growing serious. "Tonight. 8 o'clock p.m. Naruto was getting ready to go when he put on a black hoodie. He pulled the hood over his head and made his way to the archive. He was soon bouncing from rooftop to rooftop and a building away from his destination. He spent some time observing the area and noticed that many ninjas were coming and going. It was undoubtedly the time to switch shifts. He noticed a ninja approaching the archiveway by themselves and going by an alley, and he grinned. He decided that now was the right moment, so he teleported to a dim alley and waited for him to pass. When he did, Naruto moved quickly, clamping down on the ninja like a vice and covering his mouth while he gradually lost consciousness. After taking off his clothes, Naruto changed into the unidentified ninja's nude form and put on his own clothes. He located the identity card he needed to enter the archive by looking in his pockets. "I'm sorry, buddy. Don't worry, you won't know what happened when you wake up," declared Naruto as he made his way from the alleyway into the archive building. As he entered, he came to a stop in front of a small window, with a guard standing on the other side. "ID, please," The Guardian said. He was shown it by Naruto. Go ahead. Today, you are on Mission Archive. The Guardian said. Bingo, Naruto thought to himself as he moved forward. He continued, following a line that took him to the Mission Archives. He opened the door and saw thousands of filled boxes inside. He discovered the row of boxes bearing the year of his death by sifting through the years on the boxes. While he and the others went through the files, he made a dozen clones and put an alert on the door for any intruders. He spent almost an hour looking through piles of papers on the floor before discovering a file that, unlike the others, was sealed and the last one he hadn't looked through. Naruto picked up the file and began to walk away, saying, "This has to be the one." After causing the clones to vanish, he approached the door. A few ninjas were approaching the room he was in just as he was ready to open it. Having no other option, he teleported to the alley where he had stunned the ninja. He quickly left the area after hearing an alarm go off, taking off his clothes and tossing them over the ninja. He then changed back into himself. A minute later, he was standing in front of Hinata's door, and when he knocked, she let him in. He immediately pulled the curtains closed and shut the door behind him. What happened, Naruto? Concerned, Hinata said. They learned about my mess in the archive and maybe about the unconscious body outside. Nevertheless, I located what I was seeking. As he placed the file on the table, Naruto spoke. However, that is sealed. How are you going to open it? Hinata spoke while gesturing to the file. Since then, I've gotten better. I know how to handle seals. Naruto spoke while seated next to him on the couch and staring at the file. With focused attention, he performed numerous hand gestures, ultimately halting on the tiger sign. He then expelled some chakra, causing the seal to gradually vanish from the file. After it had completely vanished, Naruto grabbed the file and began to open it. The moment he looked at it, the file slipped out of his hands and onto the ground. What's it, Naruto? Stated Hinata. The pages. They are blank. Naruto said. What? As she took the pages, Hinata said. In reality, they were empty. It was all for nothing. Desperate, Naruto said as he sat down on the couch. But why would they seal a blank file? Hinata remarked as she turned the pages. I don't know. I accomplished nothing. Said Naruto, infuriated, struck a lit candle on the table and knocked it close to a blank sheet of paper. Naruto, look. Hinata said, gesturing to the paper by the candle that was still blazing. When he got closer, Naruto was astounded by what he saw. On the blank paper, words were beginning to appear. He took up the paper and examined it, noting that it was now full of words. Hand me the other papers. As he took hold of the candle with one hand, Naruto spoke. As Naruto held them above the fire, Hinata gave him one paper after another, causing everything to appear on it, even at some smaller photos that seemed to be pictures of every person involved in that mission, coming into full view. He piled them all on top of each other in the table. Finally, I have what I need. As he picked up the papers, Naruto said. Want to read them right away? If you completed it in the morning, it would be preferable. Hinata expressed worry about how it would impact Naruto. I've been waiting years for this opportunity. A night would do. Naruto remarked as he filed the documents and stashed them in the kitchen. You need to get some rest now, but we will work on it together in the morning. Come on, please. With a grab on his hand, Hinata pulled him in the direction of the bedroom. Naruto said, I need to change first, Hinata. Here, you have the option to alter. Just refrain from peeking. Hinata laughed as she said. Yes. If you don't also have a look. Naruto said, causing Hinata to flush. After a while, they both changed into their underwear. Hinata covered her panties with a loose shirt. They quickly climbed into bed and covered themselves with blankets. Facing him, Hinata said, Good night, Naruto. Come here you. Naruto grabbed her and pulled her onto him, he said. He lingered with her, admiring her lovely face for a moment before gently leaning in and kissing her. Naruto asked permission to enter her mouth by nipping and licking her lower lip while their lips moved in perfect unison. She felt his tongue slide into her mouth and opened her mouth. His tongue trailed around her mouth, meeting, entwining, engaging in a brief struggle. With each other rolling, Naruto emerged victorious. Placing his hands around her waist, he lifted her shirt slightly so that his hands could pass through. With a cunning grin, He gave her a little tickle on the sides, causing her to giggle during their kiss. He explored her upper body with his hands raised until they were resting on her breasts. She let out a moan as he lightly squeezed them. He tried to repeat the kiss, but Hinata broke it off by pushing him a little. "I prefer not to rush things." "I apologize, Naruto," Hinata said, catching her breath. "No, I'm to blame. I overreacted. Apologies." Naruto kissed her and said that. "It's okay." Grinning, Hinata said. "Good night, Hinata." Naruto kissed her and lay down next to her. He said, "Good night, Naruto." With her head resting on top of her own, Hinata spoke. Soon after, Hinata fell asleep, and Naruto trailed behind. He was eagerly anticipating an exciting day ahead of him tomorrow. The smell of ramen hit Naruto's nose, waking him up. After getting out of bed and putting on some clothes, he followed the scent to the kitchen, where Hinata was preparing a dinner for two. He reached her, embraced her, and gave her a passionate kiss. "Good morning, Hinata," Naruto said, planting a kiss on her nape. With her head resting on his shoulder, Hinata greeted Naruto with a good morning. Naruto kissed Hinata on the neck and remarked, "Smells good. The food too." Touching his sides with her hands, Hinata said, "You should try it." "The food." Naruto gave her a quick kiss on the lips and said, "I will." Naruto sat down after Hinata, who said, "Quick before it cools down." Naruto said, tucking into his bowl, "You really are good at cooking, Hinata. This is amazing." As they carried on with their meal, Hinata said, "Thank you." When they were finished, Naruto grabbed the file and threw it onto the table while Hinata finished the dishes. Hinata joined him as he sat down and opened it. Naruto began to read it and said, "Let's see what this holds inside." When he had finished reading for 30 minutes, his hands shook with rage. He was losing control to the point where even his skin began to glow a reddish color. That mission report was filled with nothing but a huge pile of bullshit. It was stated that he was killed in the battle and that the explosion reduced his body to ashes. No body was discovered. The release of his power caused the table beneath him to slowly crack. When two hands were on top of him, his hands stopped shaking. He turned to see Hinata there, her face filled with concern. Hinata took Naruto's hands in hers and said, "Calm down, Naruto. You should think straight. Anger helps with nothing." With his eyes glowing red, Naruto said, "How can I calm down? They let me die and they write a report full of bullshit about it. How did Tsunade even believe this?" Hinata, her eyes ready to well up with tears, said, "Naruto, Tsunade left the moment she heard you were dead. You were the reason she became a Hokage, and after you died, she disappeared along with Shizune." Naruto questioned, "Then who's the Hokage now?" "It's Kakashi. The elder voted him for Hokage right after and he accepted immediately," said Hinata. Naruto managed to break free from her hold and head towards the window to get a glimpse of Hokage Mountain. It was accurate. Kakashi's face was there. Serious, Naruto asked, "Hinata, how quickly can you gather the Rookie 9? "I don't know. An hour maybe, if they are not in a mission." Hinata replied. "I want you to pack the things that you need and go gather our friends. Don't call Sakura or Sasuke. And after you gathered everyone, go and wait for me outside the village in the forest." Naruto turned to her. "Should I tell them it was you who asked for them?" replied Hinata. Naruto handed her a specially made kunai and said, "No. They won't believe it unless they see me. And take this." "What is this?" inquired Hinata as she examined the peculiar kunai. "Anything happens to you, you apply just a bit of chakra on it and I will be there," said Naruto. With fear and worry in her eyes, Hinata asked, "What about you? What will you do?" Naruto grabbed her and planted a kiss on her, saying, "Don't worry about me. Just do as I said and everything will be fine." Then he released his grip. She did as Naruto instructed, saying, "No, go pack your things." Naruto placed a few scrolls on the ground while Hinata was packing. A simple hand seal caused smoke to begin billowing from the scrolls. Once the smoke cleared, sets of kunai and shurikens, a custom made sword, and what appeared to be his battle armor were resting atop the scrolls. He dressed in a dark shirt, black pants with orange trim down the sides, black boots, and metal forearm protectors. There was a swirl. Engraved forehead protector on his head now. He strapped his sword on his back and placed the shurikens on his pouches. When Hinata emerged from her room, dragging a backpack behind her, he had finished getting ready. Looking at him, she saw that his appearance had changed dramatically, even down to the shape of his face. Naruto asked, "You know what you have to do, right?" While Hinata merely nodded. Naruto kissed her and said, "Good. Now go. I won't do anything till you are out of danger." Hinata said, her eyes welling with tears, "Just don't leave me again. I can't take it once again." Naruto gave Hinata a passionate kiss and said, "I promise, I won't leave you. I will be back." Naruto and Hinata departed the area after saying, "Now go." "Hello, Kyuubi. Do you continue to sleep?" said Naruto. "I am not now. What are your desires?" Kyuubi, irritated at having been woken up, replied. Naruto said, "I need you to stay sharp in case things get hairy." "You understand. I'll be here," Kyuubi declared. "All right." Naruto sat on the couch and said, "We start in 1 hour." In conjunction with Hinata, she wandered around Konoha, desiring to carry out Naruto's instructions. She was currently heading to Kiba's house. Her first instinct was to call her teammates. As soon as she arrived at her destination, Kiba answered the door when she knocked. With his back to the door, Kiba said, "Hey Hinata. What's up?" "Kiba, I need you to do something for me. Please go call Team 10 and go wait with them in the forest outside the village," said Hinata to him. Kiba said, "Yeah, but what's going on?" "I will explain everything when we meet there with the others of Rookie 9. Please, it's urgent," Hinata replied. Kiba whistled and a large white dog appeared next to him, hopping on top of the dog. "Okay then. Akamaru, get here boy. Hinata, I believe in you no matter what," Kiba exclaimed as he leapt over and headed outside to summon the members of Team 10. She then departed to give Shino and the other Team Gaia members a call. After an hour, as he waited, Naruto sat at the table with his fingers tapping on his lap. He didn't stop acting in the same way until Kyuubi spoke to him. "Hey, kid. There's no way I could feel that girl's chakra close to the village. It looks like she left already," Kyuubi smirked. "At last. It's time to start working now. Kyuubi, are you up for a show?" Naruto grinned and said. "Always," Kyuubi uttered while grinning wickedly. He stretched a little and disappeared, emerging on top of the hospital. Naruto drew his sword and said, "Now let's find those sons of bitches that left me for dead." When the patients saw a man walking down the hospital hallway with a sword in his hand, they either lost consciousness or fled as quickly as they could. He was searching the hallway for the faces he recognized from the file. He quickly located the first person who was bandaging a ninja's wound. With a sly grin, he lunged forward, striking the ninja in the back of the neck, causing him to faint. He immediately grabbed the doctor by the collar and pushed him against the wall, pressing his sword against the doctor's shoulder to pin him there and cause him to scream in agony. Naruto said, pressing the sword further into his shoulder, "We can do this in 2 ways. You either tell me who else knew you let Naruto Uzumaki for dead and I kill you fast, or you cannot tell me and I will tear you apart limb by limb." Okay. Just let me live. I did nothing, okay. Expect us doctors there, we told only Kakashi. Now let me go please. I have a family. The doctor was crying. Pulling the sword from his shoulder, Naruto said, "Did I ever mention I would let you go if you told me anything? I had a family too when you let me for dead. Surprise, I didn't die." The doctor fell to his knees. He moved quickly to turn the blade so that the doctor was facing the edge. His blade met the doctor's neck with a quick, forceful move that split his head off from his body and sent it flying across the room. Blood began to cover the floor of the room and run through it. He left the lifeless body behind and proceeded to meet with the other 2 doctors. The doctor who had kicked him as he lay dying on the ground was within seconds of his sight. He had big plans for this man, oh boy. Taking hold of the doctor by the throat, he smashed him onto the ground, using kunai to pin his limbs to the ground so he could not move. Naruto sat down next to him and said, "Hello motherfucker. Remember me?" The doctor yelled in his face, "Who the hell might you be?" Naruto stood up and said, "Okay then. Maybe this will help you remember me." As he reached his side, he began to kick him hard in the ribs, causing them to crack from the force. Naruto replied, "What about now, You remember doing this to somebody? To somebody who was dying? While kicking his side of the chest once more. The doctor yelled, fuck you, in between screams and grunts. Naruto pulled away a little and said, okay then, if that's how you want it. Then, using a kick enhanced by chakra, he struck the doctor in the side with such force that the tip of his boot pierced his skin, ribs, and lung. He withdrew, wiping his boot all over the doctor's clothing. Naruto walked out of the room, saying, enjoy suffocating to your death, bitch. Upon entering the hallway, he found himself encircled by numerous Anbu ninjas, all poised for combat. He prepared for battle by taking out his sword and holding a kunai, ready for anyone to try first. Not long after, Anbu began leaping in his direction. He didn't even flinch as the first wave of Anbu came towards him. He pursued them, taking out the first ninja with a direct sword piercing. He hit Bulleye with the kunai thrown behind him, breaking the ninja's mask and striking him squarely in the forehead. Two other ninjas attempted to attack him as he was removing the sword from the man, but before the blades could come into contact with his flesh, they both moved aside, and he teleported away as the two ninjas struck each other fatally with their swords. Naruto was facing each of them at the beginning of the hallway as the others looked for the location of his teleportation. Taking hold of his sword with two hands, Naruto said, you guys are not worth my time. Let's end this. Wind style, slashing cut jutsu. Naruto said, severing everything in half with the exception of a few that managed to avoid it, and sending a wave of air through the hallway and through the walls. He moved to the survivors and used a kunai to sever their throats, leaving only one of them alive as the blood spread throughout the hospital. Holding the man up by the throat, Naruto said, you will send a message to your Hokage for me. Tell him that I am alive and that I will come for him. You understand me? Naruto questioned the man, who simply nodded in response. When he let go of the man, he bolted in the direction of the Hokage tower. Alright, then. Kyuubi, how about we get back together with Our Lady? Said Naruto. You gave me a bloody show, kid. Nice. I only wish it had been longer, Kyuubi uttered as he returned to his slumber. Yes, that would have been a great workout for us as well, Naruto replied. He inhaled deeply, tucked the sword behind his back, and teleported to meet Hinata. Alongside Hinata, the rookie 9 and Team Guy, missing Sasuke and Sakura, emerged into a clearing in the forest. Fortunately for Hinata and her team, everyone was on mission breaks when they managed to gather them in this location. Shikamaru rubbed his head and said, tell me Hinata, what are we waiting for here? It's getting troublesome. A foreigner approaching them said in a voice, you are waiting for me. And who might you be? Ino asked, unsure of the man's identity. Kiba sniffed at the air and said, wait a minute. I haven't sensed this smell for over 3 years. It can't be. Naruto grinned and said, hello everyone. Seems you have kinda forgotten about me. Kiba, who was now positive about the smell, said, but you were supposed to be dead. How? Naruto smiled and said, and that's why I gathered you all here. Neji crossed his arms and said, okay, we are listening. Naruto said, drawing serious looks from everyone, I have a suggestion for all of you. I won't push you to it if you don't want to accept it. I want to invite you all to come and join me into leaving this place for good. This village let me die in there and reported me dead. On top of all of that was your actual Hokage Kakashi. So if you want to go back in the village and serve a traitor, then feel free. But if you are tired of getting shit from this village, then accept my offer and come with me, to my place. Said Naruto as he wrapped his arm around Hinata. He concluded his brief speech by saying, Hinata has already chosen to join me. I accept, Neji said, turning everyone to face him. I can't stand being in a lower class in a clan. The clan and this seal in my forehead have become the death of me. Good. I can take care of that seal as I will do with Hinata's. Anyone else? Replied Naruto. Ten said as he joined Naruto's side, I will join you too. I could help your place with armory and weaponry. Kiba pointed at Akamaru and said, count me in. I am tired of having my mother growl at my face all day. Count him in too. Shikamaru approached Naruto and said, I'm in. You're going to need someone smart in there, won't you? It's going to be troublesome. I am in too. I can't let these girls alone in there, and I have little knowledge in medical stuff. Ino replied. As he turned to leave, Shino said, sorry, but I will pass. If I leave this village, then I would be as much of a traitor as the one ruling us. With a dynamic departure, Lee said, I will pass too. I want to spend my power of youth training with Guy Sensei. Sorry guys. As he left the group, Shoji said, I will pass too. I can't leave my parents and my clan yet. Sorry. Okay then. With that cleared away, now I want you all to hand me your actual forehead protectors. Naruto replied. Tossing their forehead protectors in front of his feet, everyone did exactly that. Naruto wrote a line across the Konoha symbol and said, now you are no longer shinobi of Konoha. Now what? Kiba asked. Naruto spoke as everyone grasped each other's hands and made their way toward him. Now, everyone, grab a hold of each other and be in touch with me. With a swift hand gesture, they all vanished from the scene, leaving behind nothing more than a few forehead protectors. Everyone was in a completely different place a moment later. A big gate with the symbol of a swirl on it stood in front of them. Opening the gates revealed a hidden city full of lush vegetation and exquisite buildings. And judging by appearances, everyone but Naruto appeared to have become accustomed to it. Grinning, Naruto said, everyone, welcome to Uzumaki Island. He held Hinata close to him. With her eyes blazing with stars, Ino said, it's beautiful. Grinning, Shikamaru said, so this is where you have been all this time. Excellent, Kiba exclaimed. As he led the group into the city, Naruto said, come on. Let's go meet everyone. Naruto and his friends strolled toward the center of the village, passing by a few stores en route to a clearing in the center of the community. It featured a large fountain in the center, and a bell that was suspended from a post. Naruto left the others and approached the bell. He struck it once, making a loud noise that echoed throughout the village. What was that for? Kiba asked, covering his ears with his hands. If there is an emergency or we wish to meet, we ring this bell. We ring it once for a get. Together, twice for emergencies, and 3 times in the event of an attack. Elucidated Naruto to the other people. Have you ever rang it 3 times? Asked Shikamaru. Not just yet. In any case, here they are. Naruto remarked as he saw them approaching. A few seconds later, the village center was crowded with more than a dozen people, some of whom the group knew well. So I see you succeeded? A guy without eyebrows and red hair said that. Don't tell me you doubted me, Gaara? Naruto laughed as he said. No, we don't. However, we were unaware that you were bringing pals. A girl with green hair said. Phew, things became a little complicated. They agreed to accompany me when I suggested it. They may be the only people in that village who are pure. Naruto said. Anyway, let me introduce you to them. This is the beautiful Hinata. Naruto said, encircling Hinata with his arm. This man is a genius named Shikamaru. He is surrounded by Kiba and Akamaru. Both of them are canines. That's how Ino is. Adores caring for flowers. Neji is that. An expert in the gentle fist. Ten, a weapon master, is standing next to him. Naruto concluded his introduction of his pals. You're already familiar with me. However, this is Matsuri. Pointing to a brunette girl next to him, Gaara said. And you also know my brother and sister. He pointed to Temari and Kankuro behind him. Yugito Ne is my name. The 2 tails of Jinchuriki. A girl with dark eyes and blonde hair said as much. My name is Roshi. 4 tails Jinchuriki. A man who appeared to be older than them, with red hair, a beard, and a blue line running down his nose and cheeks, said as much. My name is Han. 5 tails Jinchuriki. The tallest guy in the group, covered in a dark gray kimono over a red body armor, said. His right hand was being pulled inside his kimono. Jinchuriki of 6 tails, I'm Utakata. And this is Hotaru, a pupil of mine. A tall, thin man with brown hair and eyes said, pointing to a girl with blonde hair and brown eyes who was standing next to him. My name is Fu, 7 tails Jinchuriki. A girl with peculiar orange eyes and green hair said as much. She appeared to be the Jinchuriki's youngest. I am Killer B, 2. Of my 8 tails, Jinchuriki. A strange guy with rap moves said. He wore sunglasses and had white hair. There was a tattoo of 2 bullhorns on his cheek. Naruto, isn't there a Jinchuriki of 3 tails beast? Hinata said to Naruto. The Three Tails Jinchuriki passed away a long time ago, and they are now free. Still, it's on our end. He actually swims beneath the sea surface around this village right now. Naruto grinned and said, How did you gather all the Jinchuriki? Shikamaru said, A master pervert gave me some assistance. He was aware of their locations since he had been studying every Jinchuriki. I simply persuaded them to accompany me by using my loud mouth. Naruto grinned and said, And right now, where is Jiraiya? Is he with you here? Hinata asked again. When she followed Naruto while he was training with him, she became aware of him. Oh, no. He enjoys traveling the world and doing little research for his writing. He simply isn't able to stay still. Naruto is finished. Once the introductions are over, the others will assist you in unwinding. You can have an empty house all to yourself. This place is very spacious. There are many stores and tradespeople in this area if you need anything. They will assist you if you just mention that I sent you. Naruto clarified. So we can have a house on our own? Asked Ino. You can share or take one for yourself. You have an option. Naruto said. Everyone then began to disperse, bringing someone with them to assist with their accommodations in this place. Hinata began to turn away as well, but Naruto caught her by the arm. Where do you think you are going? Naruto grinned and said. To find a place where to live. Hinata blushed slightly as she spoke. You'll remain at my house. I promise never to let you be left alone. Naruto said, embracing her tightly. He leaned forward and met her lips for a brief moment. If you insist, then I can't refuse. Hinata smiled and gave him another kiss. In Konoha, Kakashi was in the hospital today, sitting on the Hokage chair with the lone survivor of the massacre. The Jonins who had served as sensei to the departing ones went with him. They were all looking for explanations. Did you recognize the guy who caused all of this massacre? With his hands folded in front of his face, Kakashi asked. No, ma'am. That guy was someone I had never seen, not even in the bingo book. The Anbu said. But why the medical professionals? There ought to be a relationship with it. Shikaku said, his face thoughtful. I am able to handle that. Beyond that, I can see what transpired by peering inside the doctor's head. Inoichi said, glancing at Kakashi. All right. You are free to examine the victims. What remains of them? Declared Kakashi. Do you know why Rookie Nine's half departed? Could they be involved in this somehow? Asuma said while lighting a cigarette. Not at all. That is not what Kiba and Hinata would do. Additionally, none of that generation had the affinity for the wind style technique that was employed. Kurenai said. When Inoichi is finished with the corpses, we will know for sure. Right now, all of you are dismissed. Declared Kakashi. He was by himself in the room as everyone else left. He got up and looked out the window at the village. He had a gut feeling that this was just the start of something big. He was still unsure of the cause, though. Nevertheless, one thing was certain, whoever did this would pay a price. Uzumaki Island. That place was where everyone had found lodging thanks to the Jinchurikis. They discovered a two-story building that was extremely well organized and adhered to. There was more than enough room for everyone, so none of them had chosen to share. With Hinata by his side, Naruto was now standing in front of his home. He turned the doorknob and let Hinata inside before proceeding. Hinata was astounded by the appearance of the house. This apartment was clear and everything seemed to be in its proper place, unlike his messy Konoha apartment. It was tastefully furnished as well. Whoa! When did you acquire your cleaning skills? Hinata said, surveying her surroundings. I've made Hinata different. I also stop allowing people to make fun of me now. Grinning, Naruto put her down on a couch after grabbing her by the waist. I wasn't making a joke of you. Hinata, who was beneath Naruto, said this. Is that a lie I hear? As he began to tickle her sides and make her laugh hysterically beneath him, Naruto said. Naruto. Put an end to it. Hinata said in between chuckles. While he was still tickling her, Naruto said, make me. Naruto, leave this place. We must have a conversation. From outside the house came the sound of Gaara's voice. A gentle hand rested on his shoulder as he was ready to slay a bitch for ruining his moment. Naruto, don't worry. This can be continued at a later time. Hinata kissed him on the lips and said this. You are the best. As he stood up and put on his shirt, Naruto said. He exited and encountered Gaara, whom he was about to murder if the situation for which he had been summoned wasn't grave. I am listening. Naruto said, his voice full of annoyance. Despite the fact that we have been living here for almost 2 years, the community lacks a true leader. If we hope to make this utopia of ours a reality, we need an authentic leader. We have not had any missions or responsibilities other than to simply stand here. Gaara said, crossing his arms over his chest. I realized that I had never considered this before that you brought it up. However, I may just know of a potential leader. Naruto grinned and said. Care to share who that person might be? Gaara said. The legendary Sannin, Tsunade. Naruto grinned and said. Following his conversation with Gaara, Naruto spent the remainder of the day assisting Hinata in becoming acclimated to her new surroundings. As night fell, they both went into bed and lay down next to one another. Up until Naruto broke the silence. Hey, wanna go on an adventure with me? Declared Naruto, turning to face Hinata. I would go anywhere with you. With a kiss on his shoulder, Hinata said. Earlier, Gaara reminded me of something. Here, we still lack a legal leader. I was hoping we could go locate someone who might be able to assist. Declared Naruto, staring up at the ceiling. Wasn't your dream to become a leader? Hinata said, fixing her gaze on him. The old me and that dream both passed away. It passed away precisely when I was betrayed by the people I hoped to lead someday. Naruto said. But here, you have allies, not betrayers. Take the lead for them. You are a fantastic man and a formidable ninja. You have our faith and have the potential to be the world's greatest leader. Hinata, perched on the bed, spoke. I appreciate your love and belief in me. However, I still want to give it a shot. I'm forced to. As he took her hands in his, Naruto spoke. All right. I recognize. Therefore, who do you want to lead us? Grinning, Hinata said. Naruto said, Tsunade. Are you certain? She went back to drinking after your situation and left. How are we meant to locate her? Hinata said, sounding worried. We'll go to the places Jiraiya and I went when we first found her. And I have no doubts whatsoever about this. She is essential to us. Naruto said, his hands becoming more tightly clasped. All right, then. I'll support you. As she bent over to steal a kiss from him, Hinata uttered those words. We're heading out tomorrow. I'm grateful. Naruto replied, kissing her back. I would go to the end of the world with you. Stated Hinata. He pulled her body closer to his as he held her in his embrace and kissed her forehead. In the afternoon, both Naruto and Hinata had spare clothes in a backpack on their backs and were prepared to leave. He led them to the gate, where Gaara was waiting for them. Take care till I come back. Grinning, Naruto said. What am I supposed to do with your friends? Gaara crossed his arms and spoke. Teach them. Although they believe they are strong, they still have a lot to learn. Additionally, they are now your friends as well. Naruto wrapped his arm around Hinata and said as he turned to go. In Konoha, Inoichi had just finished examining the deceased doctor's minds that they had discovered the previous day in the hospital. To describe what was going through his body and mind at that moment would be an understatement. All he had been aware of for the past 3.5 years had been a massive lie, and now he knew the reality of everything that had gone wrong. He had called together all of his friends, and they were currently inside the Hokage office, where he was going to share his recent discovery with them all. What did you find out from their minds? Kakashi, who was seated across from him at the other side of the desk, said. Maybe it would be best if I showed everyone. It's beyond words to describe. Inoichi spoke as he collected chakra and brought everyone in the room with him. They were all in his mind now, memories racing over them, pausing at a particular one. It resembled a large television, playing back memories of a specific individual. The 3.5 year old memories were the ones that were streaming. It was the moment when Naruto was abandoned to die after the doctors betrayed him. They went on until Kakashi spoke with the doctors and instructed them to keep quiet about it. The day of the person's death was then quickly brought to memory. It was none other than Naruto who had killed him. He was the one that Kakashi and the medical staff had abandoned to perish and had returned to exact revenge. With mouths hanging open and tempers beginning to flare, Inoichi put an end to the parade of recollections and brought them all back to the present. How could you subject your student to that? Are you aware of what you did? Azuma snorted as his cigarette slipped out of his mouth. I don't have to justify my actions to you or give you an explanation. You all wouldn't comprehend. Kakashi got up from his chair and said that. You do, indeed. Some of our finest ninjas are currently traveling with Naruto, who has gone rogue as a result of your actions. Even my kid. And the reason for it all is. A hand struck by lightning pierced Inoichi's heart, cutting through his words. Right after he finished, root anbus materialized behind everyone, a blade poised to sever throats. Now you all know too much, and for that I can't let any of you live. As he removed his hand from Inoichi's chest, blood spilled onto the ground. Kakashi uttered those words. You are a traitor. You turned on your village, your friends, and even your sensei. You shameless man. Shikaku spit in Kakashi's direction and said as much. All of this is taking place because of my sensei. So, could you all say anything final? Kakashi said, her expression emotionless. Please be kind to Kurenai. For crying out loud, she is pregnant. Gazing at his beloved, Azuma spoke. Clean up, guys. As the root ninjas carried out their orders and the bodies fell to the ground, Kakashi turned to face the window and spoke those words. Inform Sasuke that he must come here immediately. And tidy up this mess. As the root ninjas nodded and went, Kakashi said. Alongside Naruto. They were walking through a dense forest when Naruto and Hinata walked side by side. They were walking in silence, taking in the sound of the birds and the breeze. Hinata enjoyed being apart from her lifelong partner, but she was unaware of Naruto for 3 years. Can I ask you something private? Cited Hinata's stroll. Anything. Naruto answered. Why do you have tattoos? They appear to follow a pattern, but I'm not sure what it is. Hinata halted and turned to face Naruto. Naruto stopped and showed Hinata his tattooed body, removing his shirt. I learned about this forbidden technique on the island. Although it is the strongest jutsu ever created, using it is very expensive. I therefore have no intention of using it at all. Naruto said, pulling his shirt back. Then why did you put it on you if you are never going to use it? Stated Hinata, perplexed. If it ever comes to that, to protect the people I love. To keep you safe, as well as everyone else on the island. Naruto said, smirking a little. Where exactly did you find that technique? Asked Hinata. The Uzumaki clan formerly called the island home. They were experts at all elemental techniques, including sealing jutsus. They were attacked by other nations, which caused almost all of the Uzumaki to perish and destroyed or looted everything. At least that's what they believed. The Uzumaki people constructed an underground library before the war, containing every scroll written from the dawn of time until their own demise. It is extremely sealed and can only be unlocked with an Uzumaki's blood. When Naruto concluded the tale, Hinata was taken aback. What else is there that you haven't told me? Stated Hinata. A great deal more material. But for now, let's just enjoy this beautiful day and everything in good time. With those words, he put his arm around her waist and strolled down the street, blissfully oblivious to the events occurring across the globe. Time jump of 3 days. After arriving at a village, Naruto and Hinata made the decision to remain there for a while before continuing on to their next location. After locating a hotel, Naruto reserved a room for them. After entering their room, they each took a shower and changed into clean clothes. They decided to explore this village, so they dressed and left the hotel, strolling hand in hand through the tiny village's streets. After completing a circuit of the village, they paused at a restaurant for a satisfying meal. They were waiting for their food after placing their orders when Naruto heard a few guys discussing a fascinating topic. Have you heard about Hokage's attempted murder? I've been informed that he was attacked in his office. A guy across the restaurant said as much. Yes, I am aware of it. I've also heard that his former friends were among those who attacked him. A second guy, seated across from the first, said. Indeed, they received their just desserts. The fact that they will still bury them amazes me. I would have allowed the crows to devour their bodies as they rotted," stated the first man. "Yes. Better isn't worth it for traitors." The other guy took a sip of his drink and replied, "Do you think it's true what they just said?" Hinata spoke to Naruto in a worried tone. "I'm not sure. However, why would someone act in this manner right now?" Naruto said, considering a motive. They mentioned their old pals. There was a chance Kurenai Sensei was hurt. She was expecting when I departed. Hinata said, allowing tears to well up in her eyes. "Let me go see what more I can find out from them," declared Naruto, getting up to approach the table where the guys were chatting. "Hey everyone. Could I please join you?" Naruto spoke, addressing the pair. "Whatever," the first man said, and Naruto took a seat beside him. "Earlier, I couldn't resist listening in on your talk. Do you have further information about that?" Naruto leaned forward on the table and spoke. "Actually, not much. I was only able to determine that 5 individuals were involved in that." The second guy said this while sipping his sake beverage. "Any reason known why?" questioned Naruto. "Who knows? Most likely a coup. In any case, why are you so concerned?" The guy who was staring at Naruto said that. "There, I have a friend. Just curious as to what may have happened to him. Is there any information indicating a woman may have been involved in that attempt?" Naruto said. "I think I might have heard something about a female attacker but not sure though." The second man said. "Enjoy your drinks, guys, in either case. I'm wearing these ones." Grinning, Naruto placed some cash on the table to pay for those guys' drinks. Then he strolled back to where Hinata was waiting. As he sat down, he noticed that their food had arrived and Hinata was impatiently and worriedly waiting for him. "I gained little knowledge. 5 people were slain in the attack, and a woman may have also died. Though not sure," Naruto said. "How do we proceed? If Kurenai Sensei and her child are okay, please let me know." As Hinata prepared to cry once more, she said, "Never fear. I'll exert every effort. I swear to you." As he took her hands and held them firmly, Naruto spoke. They had made the decision to return to their hotel room after their meal. They lay on the bed, naked except for their underwear, staring at one another. "I apologize if I offended anyone. It seemed enjoyable to you earlier." Placing his hand on her shoulder, Naruto spoke. "You didn't do anything improper. It felt incredible, in fact." Hinata continued to cry as she said this. "After that, speak with me." "What's not right?" Naruto spoke as he spun her around to face him. "I am unable to. I simply am unable to. Please don't force me to discuss it. Please." Hinata cried even harder and lunged at his chest. "It's all right. I promise not to force you to do anything you don't want to. That is something I would never do." Naruto comforted her by rubbing her back. She wept for a few more minutes, and by the time she stopped, she was fast asleep. Taking hold of her, he placed her gently on the bed, adjusted her bra, and covered her with the covers. He sat by the bedside and watched her as she appeared to drift off to sleep. "What did they do to you, Hinata?" was the last thing Naruto said before deciding to join Hinata in bed. At last, Naruto and Hinata had arrived at the village where Jiraiya and Naruto had first encountered Tsunade. Naruto didn't want to discuss the events of a few nights prior, so their trip there had been largely silent. After a long and exhausting journey, they checked into a hotel once more to rest. Following their rest and rejuvenation, they made the decision to venture outside and begin searching for a specific blonde. When they were looking for somewhere to look, casinos were the first place that immediately came to mind. Strolling together, they arrived at the initial gambling location. After going through security, they entered a room full of elderly men who were gambling and had whores wrapped around their arms. After searching the area and failing to find Tsunade, Naruto chose to speak with a man who appeared to be alone and surrounded by security at a blackjack table. Security stopped him as he approached him slowly. "I just want to talk to the boss here," Naruto said. Security turned to face the boss, who nodded before allowing Naruto and Hinata to pass. "Brad, what do you want?" "I'm busy, can't you see that?" the boss said while puffing on a big cigarette. "I require some details regarding a specific individual. You could definitely assist me with that." Standing before the man, Naruto spoke. Go to the authorities if you need assistance finding someone. I'm not a helping organization or the police. The man said as he inhaled deeply from his cigarette. So if you are not gonna help me, then how about we do some business? Naruto said while seated in a chair close to the table. What do you suggest? The man leaned forward and said that. Would you like to play blackjack? You give me the information I need, so I win. If I lose, I'll be your lifelong bodyguard. As Hinata gave him a strange look, Naruto said. Why would I require an additional bodyguard? I already have a lot of talented ones. The boss yelled at a bodyguard, telling him to get Naruto out of there. Naruto snatched the bodyguard by the back of his head and smashed his skull on the blackjack table as soon as he tapped on his shoulder. You've stabilized the shaky security. You would require my kind of ninja security. What then do you say? Naruto said, sitting up straight in the chair. All right, young man. But take note, I didn't get to be the boss by accident. I've never lost at blackjack to anyone. The boss said. I'm willing to take a chance. Greatest among the three? When Naruto said that, the man simply nodded and asked a dealer to go about his business. When the game began, the dealer dealt them 2 cards, one showing and one that had been flipped backwards. The supervisor made an appearance. Ace had a showing with Jack and Naruto. Now was Naruto's moment to strike or remain. He flipped his card backwards and found a 6. Now that he was holding a 17, he made the decision to stay. Boss, holding the Jack, flipped his other card, revealing it to be a 5. He had to hit because he was at a disadvantage. The dealer dealt him another card, which he flipped to reveal it to be a 7. He was busted now that his total was 22. Naruto was now up 1.0. Everyone gets lucky sometimes. Don't get your hopes up just yet, we still have 2 games left. The boss spoke, throwing away the old cards and taking new ones from the dealer. The boss had a 4 upwards and Naruto had a 2. The boss chose to go first and flipped his other card, which was a 7. He called the dealer a hit, grinning. When he turned over his card, he saw that it was a king. He had just won the round by hitting blackjack. Like I mentioned, kiddo. It was pure luck that you won. The boss grinned and said. We'll see about that. Naruto grinned and said. The third and last round had begun, with each player getting a card. The boss had a 9 upward and Naruto had a queen upward. When it was Naruto's turn to go first, he flipped a jack. Colored card. He smirked and turned to face the boss, who appeared to be boiling on the inside. I'm going to stay. I wish you luck, declared Naruto, giving Hinata a wink. Boss flipped his card and found a 2 underneath. All he needed to win now was a face card or a 10 or a 9 to draw. He asked for a hit and got a card that was backwards. His fingers found the card, and a bead of sweat formed on his forehead. He was surprised to see it was an 8 when he flipped it. This indicated that he had 19. He was just defeated by a child. Old man, you lose. What about the data I'm looking for now? Naruto said. All right. Whatever. Please tell me what you need, then stop staring at my face. The boss, clearly enraged at Naruto, said. Tell me Tsunade Senju's location. Since she has a reputation for losing things, I know she must have visited recently. You undoubtedly made a ton of money from having her here, Naruto said. Just a few days ago, she was here. However, she stays somewhere else before coming here to lose all of her money. In front of the village, perched on the mountainside, is a cottage. Along with that other woman, she stays there. You will find her there. Now leave me alone and don't come back. The boss said, puffing on his fat cigarette. They looked at the big hill in front of the village as they left the gambling area after receiving the information. You up for some mountain climbing? Naruto grinned and said, Hinata. Yes. Make an effort to stay up. Hinata spoke, fully aware that her statement was incorrect and that her stamina was nowhere near as great as Naruto's. You. Are we starting to act a little cocky now? Naruto said. Seated before Hinata, Naruto declared, I have a better idea. How about I try to do it with you on my back? Naruto said, grinning broadly. I can walk, you know. Hinata crossed her arms in front of her chest and spoke. I am aware. However, you wouldn't want to tie her out at this point, would you? Knowing she wouldn't reach the top, Naruto said. All right. If you so specify. As Hinata leaned on Naruto's back and wrapped her arms around his neck, he used his hands to hold her in place while he spoke. Naruto arrived at the summit of the hill after they began their ascent, having followed a path that had been walked. Hinata. Can we have a little conversation? Naruto said while he carried on walking. Indeed. How about it? Hinata leaned her head against his temple and spoke. How were you treated by them? Why did you behave that way a few nights ago? Please speak with me. I understand that this is a delicate subject for you. I'm entitled to know. As he set her down on the grass and sat next to her, Naruto spoke these words. Hinata's eyes were well on their way to welling with tears. It took place 2 years ago. It was my father's daily reprimands and beatings. He called me worthless and weak all the time. He removed me from my position as the clan's heir while he was beating me. Hinata said, shedding tears. Hinata, let everything out. I'm available to you. As he embraced her, Naruto said. He then wanted to ensure that his lineage would never produce any weak Hyugas. He then took a kunai and proceeded to stab me. Within my uterus. Speaking out loud, Hinata let out a stream of tears that cascaded down her cheeks like waterfalls. He pulled Hinata's head into his shoulder and held her while she sobbed her pain away. He was also crying, sensing Hinata's inner anguish. I am unable to. Naruto, I can't have kids. I'll never be able to raise children. Hinata kept sobbing as she was muffled out. Hinata, we'll fix this. I swear. Together, we'll fix it. Naruto tried to console her as best he could, stroking her back and her hair. After holding still for nearly 60 minutes, Hinata had finally become composed. She wiped the last of her tears from her red eyes and got up. Go on, please. We need to locate a Sannin. Hinata forced a smile and said as much. Are you feeling better now? If you need more time to rest, we can. Naruto spoke as he got to his feet. I'm fine right now. We are free to proceed. Stated Hinata. Naruto said as he walked next to her, okay then. After following the path for nearly an hour more, they eventually arrived at the cottage they were looking for. Some might consider it abandoned because of the vines that clung to the walls, but a tiny light coming in through the window indicated that there were people living there. He glanced at Hinata and then turned to face the cottage, knocking on the door. After a short while, the door opened to reveal a young woman with 2 blonde ponytails and a tattoo that resembled a gem on her forehead. Tsunade sent Naruto flying through the trees and stopped at a large log as soon as she saw the people in front of her. A vein appeared on her forehead. She started beating the living hell out of Naruto as she launched herself right at him, landing on top of him. You thought it would be funny to show up in front of my house dressed as the person I cared about the most? You have committed yourself to an excruciating death. Tsunade remarked while battering Naruto. Shizune, on the other hand, had materialized at the front door and noticed someone she didn't anticipate seeing. Hinata? Why are you in this place? Shizune expressed surprise. There isn't time for an explanation. We must prevent Tsunade from putting Naruto to death. As she ran to the location where Tsunade was beating Naruto, Hinata uttered those words. Naruto? Shizune, shocked, said as she trailed behind Hinata. They joined Tsunade and Naruto a few seconds later. Naruto accepted Tsunade's punches, wounds opening up all over his body and face as he began to bleed, despite the fact that he was being beaten by her. Tsunade, give up. The real Naruto is him. You're killing him. Hinata screamed as she dashed in Tsunade's direction. Hinata, why are you in this place? Tsunade, blood streaming from her knuckles, halted her punching. This is Naruto. He brought me here to find you. If you don't trust me, look at the necklace he's wearing. Hinata said, gesturing to Naruto's neck. With his shirt ripped open, there was no doubt that the crystal necklace she had gifted Naruto years earlier was around his neck. Glancing at Naruto's smile, she let her tears flow as she sobbed uncontrollably for him. How could you subject me to this? How could you abandon me in that manner? You were important to me. Tsunade remarked as she gave Naruto a strong hug, causing him to groan in agony and crack a few ribs. You don't squeeze the life out of me, maybe I will tell you everything. Naruto said, flinching in agony. She let go of him and placed an arm around her shoulders to assist him in standing up. Naruto smiled and said, "Hey Shizune." "Hi, Naruto. I'm glad you're still with us," Shizune said, letting a few tears run from her eyes. After bringing him inside the cottage, Tsunade used her healing skills to seal his wounds while Shizune and Hinata gave him something to help with the bleeding. After getting him all fixed up, they sat in the table's chairs while Naruto began to speak, telling Tsunade and Shizune what had happened to him and why he hadn't come forward earlier. Following an hour of conversation, all of the details were summarized and everyone was up to date on what had happened. "So why did you come to find me?" Tsunade said. "For several reasons. One of them is for you to take the lead once more on the island and assist us in restoring the village to its former status. Our need for a capable medic to assist us in an emergency is the second justification. And to assist me in other areas." As he turned to face Hinata, Naruto said, "I see. However, I'm not sure if I could perform that job again." Tsunade said, "And I'm not exactly sure how to heal myself. Here, I didn't get much opportunity to practice them. You seem like a great fit for the position. And there's a pupil there who understands the fundamentals of healing methods. Assist Ino in improving her methods, and that should assist you in getting ready for what needs to be done." Naruto said, "Beside, I have accomplished what your grandfather wanted and have brought peace between tailed beasts and gathered them all together. All right. We'll accompany you. And explain to me why you actually require my assistance there as a medic." Tsunade said, fixing her gaze on Naruto. "To help me remove the birdcage seal from Hinata and Neji, I need a powerful medic. I'm capable of doing that, but if I don't have a medical professional monitoring them, their brains might burn out. I haven't tried it yet because of this." As he held Hinata's hand, Naruto said, "What? When was the birdcage seal awarded to Hinata?" "Why not?" Tsunade said, feeling a vein pop at her forehead. "It happened after you departed. My dad became irate with me. He injured me and sealed me like a birdcage." Hinata spoke as she firmly grasped Naruto's hand. "What a bitch's son. When I see him, I'm going to rip him to pieces." Tsunade spoke as she punched the table, causing it to shatter into tiny pieces of wood. "So, shall we get going then?" Naruto stood up and spoke while grasping Hinata's hand. "Let's go before I get more mad," Tsunade said, trying unsuccessfully to calm down. "All right, then. I'll send you and Shizune there once you grab hold of me," said Naruto. Tsunade and Shizune followed instructions, and then they vanished quickly. Naruto had brought Tsunade and Shizune to the village a week prior. Tsunade was delighted to find all the Biju living in harmony in the utopia Naruto had built in this abandoned location. In an effort to increase their strength and abilities, everyone was working out hard and sparring with one another. More importantly, Naruto had unlocked the hidden library's seal, enabling anyone to study there. Everyone had begun looking for scrolls that fit their particular fighting style and was attempting to pick up new techniques. Hinata was in the library right now, studying the water type scrolls that were strewn all over her desk. She was so engrossed in reading that she failed to notice anyone else was there. "Boo!" Hinata gave a startled yell and leapt into the air as Naruto spoke in her ear and touched her sides. "Naruto, why did you act in that way? Right now, my heart is stuck in my throat," Hinata said, struggling to control her breathing. "You were reading so engrossed that I was powerless to stop myself." "I apologize for that," Naruto said, massaging his neck. "Just don't ever do that again." Hinata fixed her breathing and spoke. "All right, I will not." "What are you reading now?" Naruto remarked as he sat down beside her. "Water type methodologies. I'm eager to learn everything I can." Resuming her reading, Hinata pushed her hair behind her ear so that Naruto could see her stunning face up close. "I am able to assist you with that. Naturally, if you're interested," Naruto said, glancing at her. "Yes, I am. Aid me." Hinata turned to face him and spoke. "Yes. But there is a reward for it." Naruto grinned slyly and said. "Oh. And what could that possibly be?" Hinata said, genuinely aware of his desires. "I'm not sure. A whiff of your mouth. Of you, of your skin." Naruto leaned forward and spoke. "Oh, I can deliver that," Hinata said, getting up from her seat to sit on Naruto's lap. She turned to face him, her thighs resting on his sides as she leaned close, her lips meeting his. She nipped at his bottom lip as she tightened her embrace around his neck. She met his mouth, slid her tongue inside, and they started a wrestling match. Hinata's willingness to take the initiative startled Naruto, so he allowed her to continue. Hinata kissed him from the corner of his mouth, leaving a trail of saliva behind, all the way up to his neck and his earlobe. Hinata heard Naruto moan as he bit and licked at his earlobe. She had exposed her pale neck to Naruto by kissing and licking him, and he took advantage of this by biting her white, soft skin, leaving a mark on her neck that was soon followed by numerous more, covering the side of her neck in hickeys. After leaving his earlobe and looking at his blue eyes for a while, Hinata gave him one last kiss and withdrew. "Whoa. That is undoubtedly novel," Naruto said, causing Hinata to flush. "So will you help me now?" stated Hinata. "After that, you bet I will." Naruto stood up holding her in his arms and spoke while holding onto her hips. "What made you stand up?" "These are the scrolls in question," Hinata said, gesturing to the scrolls. "Learning is beneficial. Practice makes perfect." Naruto spoke as he grabbed her and vanished into a tiny lake surrounded by a forest. Setting her down, he took a seat on the lakeside grass with Hinata by his side. "So, how much do you know about water manipulation?" Naruto said, glancing at her. "Not in a big way. With Byakugan, I can simply surround myself with a shield," Hinata said, his mood plummeting at the mention of Byakugan. "All right, that's a beginning. However, you must understand that elemental manipulation requires adaptation to the element. It requires creativity on your part, but you also need to understand the nature of the element you are manipulating. Give water a shape or form, for instance, since it lacks both." Holding Hinata's hand beneath his palm, Naruto spoke. "Observe this. Observe me as I shape the wind, as I am a wind chakra." Holding his palm in front of Hinata, Naruto spoke. The wind formed a small twister and began to spin circles around his palm a few seconds later. As Hinata watched in awe, the small tornado continued to spin until Naruto stopped it. "It's your turn now. Try to work with the water that you have here. I have faith in you and know you are capable." As he released her hand and allowed her to focus, Naruto said. Hinata closed her eyes, focused her chakra, and pointed a hand toward the lake. The lake's water began to take on the shape of a snake as she concentrated as hard as she could and began to point upward. The snake got close to Hinata and Naruto and moved her hand in her direction. When Hinata opened her eyes, she was faced with what she had made. Rejoicing in her accomplishment, she lost focus and the water snake she had made burst, drenching Naruto and Hinata in water. Despite the mess, Hinata turned to face Naruto and gave him a kiss. "I'm grateful, Naruto. I succeeded," Hinata said, giving him a strong hug. "Anything for you, Hinata," Naruto said, giving the hug back. "I'm sorry to interrupt, but Tsunade called for you, love doves." She declared herself prepared. Kiba said while perched atop Akamaru, who was perched atop a branch. "Is she prepared? So let's stop wasting time now," declared Naruto, grabbing Hinata and teleporting to the location where Tsunade was departing from Kiba. "Is that accurate? Are you prepared to do it in full?" As he held Hinata close to him, Naruto spoke. "Excellent. I put in endless hours to regain my proficiency, and now I'm prepared." Everything hinges on Hinata's readiness psychologically for this. Tsunade spoke while glancing at Hinata, who was hanging out with Naruto. "I believe in both of you. Come on, let's do this." Hinata spoke as she moved forward. "All right, then. Accompany me, please." Tsunade spoke, and Naruto and Hinata trailed after her down the hallway. They arrived at a room and entered. In the center of the space was a bed. The center and end of her bed were adorned with leather straps on both sides. "Lay on that bed, Hinata." Tsunade and Hinata reportedly complied. "These straps are to keep you steady during the process." Tsunade spoke as she tightly strapped Hinata's hands and legs to the side of the bed. While everything was getting ready, Naruto moved Hinata's hair aside to the side. "Everything will be all right," Naruto said while giving her a kiss. "I am aware. Here, I have you covered. There's nothing to worry about." Hinata kissed him back and rested her head on the bed, saying this. "This is a Hinata bite. More preferable to biting your tongue. Tsunade spoke while sandwiching a leather belt fragment between Hinata's teeth and forcing her to bite it. Naruto positioned himself behind her head. Tsunade was by Hinata's side, tending to her brain and shielding it from harm. Naruto gasped and performed a series of hand signs, after which his palms took on a dark aura. He folded one hand over the other and rested them on top of Hinata's seal and forehead. Hinata grunted as loudly as she was permitted to as soon as his palm touched her skin. If not for the belt between her lips and her throat, she would have screamed. Her body began to writhe in an attempt to escape the excruciating pain that was encircling her limbs with straps. Naruto applied more chakra to his hands, causing them to glow even more, while she writhed on the bed. As he held them in that position for a short while, the aura surrounding his hands began to point toward Hinata's forehead seal. At this point, Hinata's pain became so excruciating that she passed out. The seal began to burn from the sides as soon as the aura moved from his palm to it. It gradually disappeared from her forehead until there was nothing left of the seal there save a pattern of burned skin where it had once been. Naruto fell to his knees and gasped for air. He had been somewhat depleted by the jutsu, but the stress and pain Hinata caused him, along with the fear of losing her in the event of a mistake, had taken all of his energy. "How is she?" At Tsunade asked Naruto. "She will be fine, better now because of you." Tsunade smiled and gave him a shoulder pat. "There is still one more thing you have to do to her." Gazing down at Hinata's unconscious form, Naruto spoke. "What is it?" Tsunade said. "Adjust her uterus. Her father had severely injured her there with a knife. Please try your best to get her fixed. She won't feel pain because she is still unconscious, so now is your chance," declared Naruto, casting pleading glances at Tsunade. "I will begin immediately, but since my chakra won't pass through clothing, I will need to undress her. You must go outside, please," Tsunade said, gesturing to the door. "I've already seen her almost entirely nude. Why must I leave the house?" Naruto said. "But she's not quite nude yet, so you'll get to see her that way whenever she agrees to it. You can leave now as you are not needed here." Pushing him toward the door, Tsunade said. As a sign of respect for Hinata, Naruto consented to leave. Shutting the door behind him, he spent the next 60 minutes sitting on the ground, until Gaara joined him. Gaara decided to keep Naruto company while he impatiently waited outside the door, relieved that his attempt to remove the seal had been successful. After 30 minutes, Tsunade opened the door, causing Naruto and Gaara to get up in anticipation of the news. Naruto asked, "How did it go?" "Despite the serious damage, I was able to heal them and patch her internal wound. She is strong once more, but she needs to take a break from all of this strain for at least 2 weeks, so don't overwork her." Tsunade grinned and said. Naruto leapt at her, embracing her firmly while tears streamed down his face. "Thank you, thank you, thank you." Naruto kept saying it because happiness had taken over his mind. "Go get her and give her some rest at home. In the morning, she needs to wake up. I'll pay her visits to check on her daily progress," Tsunade said as she and Gaara walked away. After approaching Hinata, Naruto lifted her into a bridal position and teleported her to his bedroom, where he covered her with sheets and placed her on his bed. Despite the excruciating pain she had endured, she exhaled contentedly as Naruto covered her body with sheets. Konoha. Sasuke had not shown up for Kakashi's request for him to appear, and it had been a week. He had made an official return to the village after trying to leave it years earlier, but he continued to wander around and only returned when Hokage called him for missions. He heard someone knock on his door while he was observing through the window. "Come in." Speaking loudly enough for the individual on the other side of the door to hear, Kakashi said. The door opened, revealing Sasuke Uchiba, the man he had called for, who strode haughtily over to a seat beside his desk and settled into it. "I'm happy that my student chose to respond to my call." "Salutations, Sasuke." Smiled through his mask, Kakashi said. "Stop being so rude, Orochimaru. Tell me, please, why in the world you need me?" Sasuke said in a brazen tone. "Where is the respect for your mentor these days?" Orochimaru, who was sitting in Hokage's seat, said. "Why did you call me?" said Sasuke, growing agitated with the snake. "You have an assignment from me. It appears that Kakashi, your long-lost rival whom you killed at Valley of the End and thought was dead, has survived and is now seeking retribution for what we did to him. Orochimaru, who continued to resemble Kakashi, said, "What a piece of shit that scarecrow was. He couldn't just finish the task at hand, could he?" Sasuke said as lightning bolts shot from his hand in a fit of rage. "Well, he did me a favor by giving me this body and a 3-year Sharingan so I wouldn't get your Sharingan. However, you can mend what he left damaged." Orochimaru grinned through the mask, speaking. "What should I do?" As Sasuke settled down, he said, "Find his hiding place, that tiny little hole, and bring him to me. Kill him if he resists. Find him and take whoever you need to." Orochimaru said, gazing intently at his pupil. "I'll go with Yugo, Karen, and Suigetsu on my own team. And that irksome Haruno. She could be useful after all." As he stood up to go, Sasuke said, "Best of luck to you. And be successful in whatever you do." Said Sasuke, and Orochimaru left the office to assemble his group. The island. It was the morning following the day Hinata had given up her seal. A few rays of sunlight striking Hinata's face startled her out of slumber. She slowly opened her eyes, experiencing some discomfort from the strong sun's rays. She couldn't recall how she had gotten so bad when she finally woke up. All she could recall was intense agony and dizziness. When she turned to face Naruto, she saw that he was holding her hand while his body was hanging by the bedside and just his head was resting on the mattress. He stirred in his sleep and woke up as Hinata tightened her grip on his hand, grinning. His heart melted when he saw Hinata smiling, even though he had instinctively glanced at her to see if she was in pain or in need of anything. Hinata grinned and said, "Hey. Hi there. Had me a little concerned." Naruto said, planting a kiss on her hand. "I'm doing okay. Many thanks to you." Hinata tried to stand up, but Naruto stopped her. She said, "You ought not to stand up. The commands of Tsunade." Naruto said this while adjusting her pillows and forcing her to sit on the bed. "Oh. After that, you ought to come rest with me here. My directives." Smirking, Hinata said, "As you wish, my lady." With a playful bow, Naruto joined her on the bed next to her. "You feel any pain or you need anything?" With his head resting on her lap, Naruto spoke. "I'm doing okay. I have some stomach and head pain, but nothing serious." "It's okay," Hinata said, running her fingers through his unkempt hair. "Last night, Tsunade healed your wound. Since you were unconscious and wouldn't be in pain, we took advantage of the situation." Naruto said, standing up and fixating his gaze on her eyes. "You succeeded? Really?" Remarking, Hinata was astounded by what she was hearing. Indeed, in all seriousness. She advised that in order to fully heal, you should remain in one place for about 2 weeks. Grinning, Naruto said. Hinata simply gave him a passionate kiss without saying anything more. Reaping the kiss, Naruto was pleased to see Hinata smiling once more. As they continued their flirting, Tsunade burst through the bedroom door. "Don't you know how to knock?" As he returned to kissing Hinata, Naruto said. Make a knock, make a knock. Now disconnect it. I must examine Hinata." Tsunade spoke as she approached the couple. "All right, then. Still, I should take a shower." As he bid Hinata farewell with a final kiss before heading to the restroom, Naruto said. "And I thought I missed him and his antics." Tsunade shook her head and said. "I appreciate everything you did for me last night, Lady Tsunade. It has great significance." Hinata said, lowering her head to Tsunade. "Never bring it up. What happened to you is not fair to anyone. Let's carry out the examination now." Tsunade remarked as she grabbed Hinata's wrist and felt for a pulse. Although it seemed a little hurried, she understood why. "How do you feel now? Do you have eye pain? Do you feel any abdominal pain?" Tsunade said, glancing at Hinata. "I'm doing great. My eyes occasionally sting a little, but it goes away fast," stated Hinata. "I see. That's typical given what happened to you. I also need to issue you with a warning." Tsunade grinned and said. "What is it?" Worried, Hinata said. "Since your womb is healed, your periods are back with it." Tsunade chuckled as she spoke. "I'm able to handle. Furthermore, a small fee is insignificant." Hinata grinned and said. "All right. I'm done for the day here. You ought to relax." Furthermore, I advise against doing it with Naruto just yet. Your wound requires some time to adjust as it has recently healed. Tsunade said, glancing at Hinata, who had a deep red flush. Okay. Red in the face, Hinata spoke. See you later then. Tsunade said, walking out of the room. Naruto returned shortly afterward, dressed in a tank top and boxers. How did your checkup go? As he sat on the bed, Naruto said. Everything went smoothly. I'm doing great, stated Hinata. I am glad to hear that, Naruto said, leaning in to give her a kiss. You going somewhere today? Stated Hinata. I'll work out a little with Gaara. To watch over you, I'll leave a clone here with you, Naruto remarked while putting on some new clothes. Can I come with you? Hinata said, sitting up on the bed with her feet on the ground. Tsunade said you need rest, Naruto said, glancing at her. You cannot train me. All I want is to get out of bed and move around. As Hinata got up, she said. All right. You are merely observing, though. Don't even attempt to act, Naruto said, glancing at her. I promise, Hinata said, giving him a quick kiss. They went to where Gaara and Naruto were meant to train. Hinata sat on a branch and watched the guys spar as they began their training. They continued in this manner for hours on end and showed no signs of stopping. She just wanted to be by Naruto's side and never leave, so she didn't mind at all. She was enjoying the show when she began to feel lightheaded and her vision began to blur. She stumbled onto the branch, lost her balance, fell flat on her back, and passed out. Hinata! Yelled Naruto, hurrying over to her. He stooped to pick her up on his lap and brushed the hair from her face. Her pulse was still there when I checked it. Hinata! Awaken! Naruto said, giving her a gentle shake. She awoke gradually and regained consciousness. Hinata! Are things going well for you? What took place? Naruto said, drawing her nearer to himself. I'm doing great. I simply stumbled and fell. I'm not too bad, said Hinata, giving up and landing on Naruto's arms after attempting to stand up. We're about to head home. You must take a nap. You should stay at home, I said. As he teleported to his bedroom and held her up, Naruto said. I'm doing okay. Actually. As Naruto seated Hinata atop the bed, she uttered these words. No, you're not. You are going to take a nap. Right now. Naruto said this while yanking Hinata's pajamas and hurling them in her direction. You are overreacting, Naruto, Hinata said, beginning to shift. No, I'm not. There, you fainted. The fall from the tree might have been worse, declared Naruto, who had also changed into pajamas and joined her in bed to ensure she slept. Fine then. Hinata turned to the side and shut her eyes, saying this. They were both fast asleep. They had a restful night's sleep until a stranger entered their room. He was tall, with two prominent horns protruding from his forehead and long, gray hair. He wore a white robe, and around his neck was a magatama. He moved slowly toward Hinata, but halted when Naruto materialized in front of him and pointed a kunai at his neck. Who are you and what do you want here? Naruto said, irate. Hinata was startled to wake up and sit up, fearing that someone unfamiliar was in their bedroom. Byakugan Princess, the unknown man said, giving a feeble smile. Princess Byakugan? What do you mean? Respond to me. Naruto scoffed. Naruto, take a seat. He is not an enemy. A voice that belonged to Kyuubi and was of Naruto's kind spoke. Stand down? Is what you mean? Are you acquainted with him? Naruto answered Kyuubi. His name is Otsutsuki Hamura. He is the Six Paths Sage's brother. The one who made bijus like me and others. Thus, take a seat. Said that Naruto and Kyuubi chose to pay attention to him. All right. Describe your purpose for being here. Naruto said, setting down his kunai. I'm here to support her. The Princess of Byakugan. Standing in front of Hinata, Hamura spoke these words as he approached her. I give you the Byakugan. Do you consider yourself Hyuga? Hinata said, gazing at the enigmatic figure. I come from the same source as the Hyuga people. I am Otsutsuki Hamura. I'm also here to present you with a gift. Hamura said. What gift? As he approached Hamura and Hinata, Naruto spoke. You can advance to the next level with your Byakugan. I'll give you my power and assist you in achieving that. Since you are the last remaining pure-hearted Hyuga, I have no doubt that you will use my abilities wisely and follow my path. With a gesture that brought his middle and index fingers to rest against Hinata's forehead, Hamura spoke. Keep following the path you are on, Byakugan princess, said Hamura, sending his powers to Hinata as his fingers began to glow. After finishing, he gradually vanished, leaving no trace of his existence. Hey. Are you all right? As he walked up to Hinata and clasped her hands, Naruto said. I have eye pain. My eyes seem to be pulsating in some way. With a hand in front of her face, Hinata said. Let's just rest and we will figure this out in the morning. Naruto said as he entered the bed and kissed her hand. For the second time this evening, the two of them fell asleep. This time, they slept through the night without any more disruptions, but Hinata's sleep was not enjoyable because of the throbbing pain. They slept until the morning light reached them. When he woke up, Naruto was the first to check on Hinata. She occasionally stirred, telling him that something was hurting. When she eventually stopped stirring, she slowly opened her eyes and tried to direct them toward her surroundings. At last, she looked up at Naruto, who had a look of shock on his face. What? What's not right? Hinata spoke while upright. Are you feeling okay, Hinata? Naruto said, staring at her in disbelief. I am flawless. I'm no longer in pain, and I feel more at ease than before. Why not? Stated Hinata. You should probably look yourself in the mirror. As he got out of bed and dragged her over to the mirror, Naruto said. Naruto, I told you. I feel fantastic. When Hinata got to the mirror, she was frozen in place. She was taken aback by what she saw when she looked in the mirror. Her eyes, which had been empty and pupilless, had changed to a pale blue color with blue pupils and what appeared to be a white lotus-shaped flower encircling the pupil. What happened to me? Hinata said, pointing to her reflection in the eyes. I'm not sure. The fact that you got your powers from the old man must have played a part. Do you sense any changes in yourself? As he drew her into his embrace, Naruto said. My chakra reserves seem to have increased to a degree I never would have imagined. Furthermore, neither the seal being removed nor Tsunade's healing of me caused me any pain or hurt. I'm feeling great. As she hugged Naruto, Hinata expressed her need for solace from the unidentified things happening to her. That is incredible. In addition, you look even hotter with these new eyes. Naruto said, lifting her face and planting a kiss on her. I didn't realize that you were the only person with blue eyes. I have them now. With a laugh, Hinata kissed him back and pushed him onto the bed. She kissed him again, harder than she realized she could as she piled on top of him. As she began to undress him, Tsunade, who had stopped by to see how Hinata was doing, appeared through their open door. Naruto turned to face Hinata, who was partially naked, and exclaimed, You better have the best reason in the world to show up right now. I didn't intend to cause any disruption. But trust me, the information I have will be sufficient to free me from your specter. Jiraiya rubbed the back of his neck and said. With seriousness, Naruto said, Start talking then. The news isn't exclusive to you, boy. Bring everyone with you from Konoha. It's really important. Jiraiya said. Hold on a moment. Additionally, while I'm away, do not dare say or do anything lustful toward Hinata. With a glare that said, Touch her and your balls are off, Naruto spoke. No worries. Jiraiya, perspiring, said. After leaving his home, he traveled the entire island, meeting up with Ino, Kiba, Tenten, Neji, Tsunade, and Shizune. The entire group arrived in front of Naruto's house in a matter of minutes, and Jiraiya and Hinata met them there. You little bitch, you. You at last make the decision to appear. Declared Tsunade, prepared to knock Jiraiya out of the next 10 years. Slow down. Later, we can fight. I have some depressing news for them right now. Jiraiya said as he turned to face the teenagers in front of him. You will find what I am about to say difficult, and I apologize, but I had to let you know. Dead are Asuma, Shikaku, Choza, Inoichi, Kurenai, and her unborn child. Jiraiya, feeling sorry for the guys, hung his head and spoke. What are you saying? Are you making some sort of sick joke with this? Kiba said, snatching Jiraiya by the shirt. This is accurate. I apologize. They were both ninjas and decent people. Jiraiya spoke, placing his hand on Kiba's shoulder as tears welled up in his eyes. That's not possible. Not in a way. It was Kurenai-sensei's pregnancy. She is not dead at all. Hinata collapsed to her knees, tears cascading down her cheeks like waterfalls as she let out a loud scream. How? Why? Who killed my father? Shikamaru, who was unable to control his tears, said as much. In Hokage's office, they met their demise. There's only one guy who could have pulled it off. Jiraiya said. Looking around, one could see that sadness had taken over and that everyone was now crying. Cries, both loud and soft, resounded throughout the space. Hinata sobbed in Naruto's arms, while Shikamaru sat on the grass and sobbed with his knees pressed against his face. Kiba was completely frozen in place, unable to move as his tears fell to the ground. Conversely, Ino was swaying back and forth until she lost consciousness and collapsed onto the grass. They hurried to check on her as soon as they heard someone fall. She is doing well. She's just not conscious. Tsunade remarked while she checked her vitals. I'll take her home. Kiba said, pulling her into his arms and lifting her off the ground. He turned down the road to Ino's house without another word. Ten followed Neji, who had assisted Shikamaru in getting up, as they escorted him to his house. Jiraiya shook his head, turning to face Naruto, and followed Tsunade and Shizune out of the building. As soon as he entered, Naruto grabbed Hinata by the arms and headed straight for their bedroom. After placing Hinata on the bed, he embraced her and covered her, drawing her near to him so she could pour out her sorrows on him while she sobbed. She cried herself to sleep for hours before she finally did. He joined her in her slumber, kissing her on the forehead. Kiba and Ino in the morning. As the bright sunlight stung her face, Ino opened her eyes. She had cried all night long in her sleep, causing her eyes to swell, and her pillow was covered in tears. She realized she was still in her pajamas when she moved the covers away. She recalled dressing normally when she went to Naruto's house. She didn't know what had happened to her after fainting. That was before Kiba entered her room with 2 cups of coffee in her hands. He didn't appear to have slept through the night and appeared to be dressed normally. He had thick bags over his eyes. Kiba? Why are you in this place? As Kiba approached her, Ino spoke. I brought you home last night because you passed out. I thought you might need some of these here. Kiba said as he gave her one of the cups. I'm grateful. Did you change my clothes, Kiba? With a flush, Ino took a sip of her coffee and said. Yes. However, I refrained from looking. I swear. I simply assumed that you would need to sleep in a more comfortable manner after that. I apologize for acting without consulting you. Kiba said, glancing at her. It's all right. I was under your care. I'm grateful. Leaning on Kiba's shoulder, Ino spoke. Listen to Ino. We need to be closer than ever to each other now because of what happened. Not only myself and you, but everybody. And I want you to know that you can always rely on me if anything ever bothers you. Kiba said as he took a sip of his coffee. Yes, and it benefits both parties. Come on, you deserve to sleep and have a shower. You are welcome to use my bed and bathroom. Ino said, giving him a cheek kiss and standing up. I will make us some food. Leaving the bedroom, she said. Hinata and Naruto. Feeling something on his chest, Naruto woke up. He turned to face his chest and saw that Hinata had not moved from when they had gone to bed the previous evening. Her eyes were still swollen from the previous night, and her hair was all over her face. She sighed and began stirring, slowly brushing the hair behind her ear. It didn't take long for her to awaken. Good morning. Naruto spoke while putting his palm to her left cheek and petting it. As Hinata sat up and released Naruto beneath her, she said, Morning, Naruto. How are you feeling? Hinata became dejected once more as Naruto regretted what he had said. Right now, there is nothing we can do to help them. We should at least exact revenge for their passing. Hinata raised her head and said. No longer able to agree. This will be paid for by those in charge. As he sat up, Naruto kissed her forehead. Go on, please. We need to complete our training. As Hinata stood up and Naruto trailed behind, she spoke. Fast. Forward to October 10th. Hinata had spent a long time planning this day. Naruto had a plan in place since yesterday, and today was her birthday. In order for her and the others to prepare the surprise party she wanted to throw for Naruto, she had asked Gaara to keep him occupied until 7 o'clock in the evening. Although they had experienced a significant loss, she didn't want Naruto to feel alone this year, even though she knew that he had been alone his entire life and had no one with whom to celebrate his birthday. She had already baked him a cake and wished him a happy birthday with frosting. Others had brought him gifts and other food and beverages. Putting the finishing touches to everything was prepared, and all they had to do was wait for their birthday child. It was almost time for him to arrive. After a protracted training session, Gaara and Naruto were making their way home on foot. When they arrived at the spot where they usually split up, Gaara accompanied him in the direction of his house this time. "Isn't your house on the other direction?" Naruto said, gazing at Gaara. "Matsuri told me she would hang out with Hinata today, so I am picking her up." Gaara said, looking ahead. "Oh. Alright, then." Naruto spoke, and soon after, they arrived at his residence. When they entered, no one was present. "Let's check in the backyard," Gaara said. When he opened the backyard door, he discovered all of his friends there in addition to Hinata and Matsuri. "Happy birthday, Naruto." Wished everyone well. After this, Naruto was left speechless. No one had ever treated him in that way before, so he never expected that. He was overcome with emotion and was unable to contain his tears. "You were into this too?" Naruto inquired of Gaara. "It came from Hinata. I consented to it." Gaara grinned and said. He turned to face Hinata and began to walk in her direction until he came face to face with her. He briefly stopped in front of her before suddenly enfolding her in his arms and giving her such a strong hug that he risked breaking her bones if he hadn't let go. "Happy birthday, Naruto." Hinata kissed him and said. With a kiss back, Naruto said, "Thank you, Hinata. You're worthy of happiness. Let's celebrate, come on." As she took hold of his hand and drew him toward everyone, Hinata spoke. There, they spent hours drinking, cracking jokes, and even engaging in a little friendly rivalry. He thanked his friends for the numerous gifts he had received. Everyone began to leave as the time passed, with a few of them needing assistance due to their excessive alcohol consumption. After a protracted period of sadness, everyone was relieved to have some fun, even though Naruto and Hinata were now left alone. They were both a little worn out from the celebration. "Okay, we both love each other equally," Naruto said as he pulled the covers over them, giving her one last kiss for the evening. "Good night, Naruto." With a happy closure of her eyes, Hinata spoke. "Good night to you too, Hinata." Without even attempting to get out of her, Naruto said as he fell asleep alongside her. Naruto awoke following that exciting evening to the full force of the sun's rays in his eyes. He attempted to move, but his body's weight prevented him from doing so. When he fully opened his eyes, he saw who was lying on top of him. He watched with a smile as Hinata slept soundly beside him. She moved to his hand and took pleasure in it as he moved her hair out of her face. Before long, her eyes opened and her happiness was palpable. Naruto kissed her forehead and said, "Morning." With a kiss back, Hinata said, "Morning to you too. I'm grateful for all that you accomplished yesterday." As he pulled her in for a kiss, Naruto said, "It was my pleasure." As she stood up and sent him one last kiss, Hinata said. Then she realized that she had spent the entire night inside his member. She reddened. "You know, you are really cute when you blush." As he stood up and pulled Hinata off her feet, Naruto spoke. He moved in the direction of the restroom, keeping her raised above his arms. There, they spent the most of the morning. After emerging, they decided to dress and go for a stroll around the area. They were strolling along when Ino and the other girls approached them, took Hinata, and announced that they were going to the hot springs for some girl time. Naruto was left on his own. He made the decision to recline beneath the tree's shade and take in the gentle breeze. But he was cut off again and again. It came from his friend Gaara this time. "You know, you look content today. Fantastic evening?" Gaara said, reclining next to Naruto. "You're clueless. Why did you come here?" Naruto said. "I am in deep shit right now," Gaara said as he lay there, closing his eyes. "What took place?" Are you alright? Declared Naruto, glancing at his old friend. Matsuri has a baby. I'm also not yet ready to become a father. Gaara said. Naruto startled him out of his slumber with a loud laugh. Anything funny to you? Gaara said. The cold-blooded Gaara is afraid of being a father. Naruto said while he kept giggling. All right. When Hinata eventually informs you that she is pregnant, we'll see what transpires. After that, we'll find out who is laughing. Gaara said. All right, still. Man up, man. Come on. You'll make a fantastic dad. Don't worry about it. Furthermore, since our arrival, you will be the first father in this place. Naruto patted Gaara on the back. Thanks for the vote of confidence, Gaara said. They remained motionless for a short while until Shizune materialized in front of them. Good to find the two of you together. I need you to accompany me. Shizune said. What keeps you away from the other girls? As he sat up, Naruto said. I should be doing more important things than visiting hot springs. Now adhere to my directions. Tsunade wants to talk to you about some important things. Shizune said. We can't leave an old lady waiting, now can we? Naruto said as he assisted Gaara in standing up. Then Naruto said, let's go. Then he teleported the three of them to where Tsunade was. They discovered Tsunade in her office when they appeared there. She was looking through one of many scrolls that were in front of her. We are here. Claimed Naruto was attracting Tsunade's interest. All right. Take a seat. You two together. Tsunade said. After following instructions, they sat across from Tsunade. After much effort, I was able to reach a few lords who are eager to work with our little village. They wish to invest here as well, using a variety of trades, and they are prepared to provide missions and pay for that. Tsunade said. I'm glad to hear that. What prerequisites do they have? They won't do this, in my opinion, unless they receive something in return. Naruto said, swaying on the chair. They request that you complete the tasks they assign you in a covert manner and without disclosing their funding source. We are a group of rogues, and they would prefer that their name not be associated with us, so they avoid doing business with us. Tsunade gave an explanation. That's acceptable. That is something we can accomplish. Gaara said. Outlaws. That sounds good. Naruto chuckled. It is important to keep in mind that the majority of the missions will likely involve high-level assassinations. Do you concur with that? Tsunade said, glancing at the two of them. Yes, we do. I want to lay solid groundwork for this place. Thus, something along those lines would only strengthen us. Naruto said, glancing at Gaara, who nodded in agreement. All right. I'll verify the legitimacy of the agreements with the lords. As for the present, Naruto, I have a task for you. Although it won't pay in cash, we can still benefit from that in a more significant way. Tsunade said. What is the mission? Questioned Naruto. You have been ordered to abduct Hiashi from Konoha. He is a member of the village leaders' council. He might know something that will help us. Tsunade said, her expression turning from playful to grave. If you send me there, how do you know he'll return alive? I only want to cut out his insides and feed them to him. Naruto said, irate. He desired to hold him accountable for all of his actions toward Hinata. I am aware. You are not going alone because of this. Gaara is going to accompany you, Tsunade said. I am able to look after myself. He's welcome to remain here. Naruto said. It is true that you are stronger than your adversary. However, I'm sending him along to watch over you, Tsunade remarked. All right. However, under one circumstance. This is something that Hinata is unaware of until I return. Naruto stated sternly. She doesn't get to know of this, Tsunade said. Leave when you are ready. After that, they both departed from the location. They made the decision to depart early the following day. Since they would most likely be returning soon, they made the decision to return home and wait for their girls. Naruto was soon seated on his living room couch. At the first sight of Hiashi, his mind wondered if he could resist sending him to hell and back. And before he knew it, he was facing Kyuubi in his mind. Hello. Are you still contemplating Tsunade's words? Kyuubi asked, glancing down at Naruto. How am I not able to? She desires that I bring the person who hurt Hinata the most back. Naruto said. How about this? After you give Tsunade what she wants, we can finally touch him, that is, after she's finished with him, with your hands and my claws. Kyuubi said. Your talons? Do you also desire a piece of him? Naruto said. Remember that I am inside you? I understand how you feel about him and I feel the same way you do. Kyuubi said as he dropped to the ground. That is something we can accomplish. Once they get what they want from him, we can work on him. As he gave Kyuubi a fist bump, Naruto said. Alright. Now depart. Your little vixen is home, Kyuubi declared, and Naruto turned to leave. And as Kyuubi had said, Hinata was already at home, sitting comfortably over his waist. Naruto said, Hey there. Hey. How was your day? Hinata leaned forward and gave him a quick kiss. It performed well. How about you? How was the experience at the hot spring? As he put his arms around her, Naruto spoke. It was both calming and taxing. The girls were swarming me, curious about our relationship. As Hinata rested her head on his chest, she spoke. She was starting to prefer placing her head there. As he stopped his hands over her butt and moved them over her body, Naruto asked, Was it so obvious of what we did? You definitely leave your mark, then. That gives it away. Hinata said, gesturing to the hickeys hanging over her neck. You didn't mind it at all when I gave them to you. As he worked his hands over her butt, Naruto said. I wouldn't object if you offered me extra. To let them know I am all yours, I would demonstrate that to everyone. As she began to nibble at his earlobe, Hinata said. Did Matsuri tell you girls that she is pregnant? Naruto said, rubbing her back and slipping his hands beneath her shirt. No, she didn't. How do you know it? Hinata asked, gazing intently at him. I was told by Gaara. In all honesty, he fears becoming a father in the future. Naruto said, I don't think he's really ready for such a big step. Would you be ready if I said I was pregnant? Hinata, sitting up, rubbed her stomach and said. You are, wait? How? Naruto spoke in shock, his face turning pale with terror. Not a fool. I was only joking around with you. Hinata erupted in laughter as she spoke. That wasn't a good idea. Not at all good. Naruto sighed with relief as he spoke. She lay on side, her eyes closed, her laughter subsided, and she rested by his side. Gaara and I are going away for 2 days. 3 days at most. We are on patrol throughout the neighboring territories. Simply to make sure we are secure. Naruto remarked while stroking her hair. I'm able to participate. I'm very skilled at spotting Byakugan as well. Stated Hinata. Not at all. You must remain here so I can train you to use your new abilities. Instead of just chasing around with us, it would be preferable if you could master them here. Naruto remarked while petting her cheek. All right, then. But to get me to stay put, you'll need to bribe me a little. Said Hinata, reaching inside his pants to pick up his dick and begin caressing it. As he took her and made his way upstairs to their bedroom, Naruto exclaimed, gladly. Go back in time to before dawn. At the village gate, Gaara was waiting for Naruto with his gear on. Naruto was nowhere to be seen, and it was almost time for them to part. Gaara had to wait a further 40 minutes for Naruto to arrive at his intended location. He appeared to be engaged in combat with all 9 tailed beasts. He looked as though he hadn't slept at all because of the mess in his hair and the bags under his eyes. What took you so long? Gaara said while glancing at Naruto. Just one word. Hinata. As he shook his head to regain consciousness, Naruto said. Hinata, what do you mean? Gaara said. She was at last content and dozed off a few minutes ago. She had almost completely depleted my chakra reserves, I swore. Naruto said. Now, there's no turning back. It appears you will require this mission in order to get your forces back. Let's move now, Gaara said. After that, they departed. After a day. Perhaps the tallest tree outside of Konoha was where Naruto and Gaara were standing. Gazing over Konoha, they observed the movements of civilians. They looked toward the Hyuga compound. They were waiting on their intended victim to arrive. And at last, after hours of watching, they caught sight of Hiashi Hyuga. Gaara noticed the change in Naruto's aura and on his face right away. Putting his hand over Naruto's shoulder, he hoped his chakra would calm him down and prevent any patrol from being alerted. They did not stop watching Hiashi until he was by himself. He was practicing his soft kneed fist techniques while wearing his Byakugan. Confronting him was difficult because he could see all around him. This fucker is a slippery bastard. Naruto spoke while firmly holding onto a tree branch. Not always. I've got a plan, but you have to get to my mark quickly. Are you prepared? Gaara said. Yes. What's the play we are in? Naruto said. I isolate his legs by turning the area around him into fast sand. You make a quick move to go grab him there, Gaara said. All right. As he took his position, Naruto said, on your mark. Gaara fell to the ground from the branch of the tree. He placed his palms on the ground, focused his chakra within, and began sending it toward the Hyuga compound. When his chakra formed a pool around Hiashi, he stopped. He nodded, indicating that he was prepared, as he looked up at Naruto. As he readied himself to launch himself at Hiashi, Naruto got into motion. In a matter of seconds, Gaara transformed the entire area surrounding Hiashi into a quicksand, trapping him there. Hiashi was about to yell for help or say anything when Naruto suddenly materialized in front of him. You! Exclaimed Hiashi, glaring at Naruto. Yeah. Me. In response, Naruto struck Hiashi so hard on the forehead that he was rendered unconscious for several days. Taking him out of the quicksand, he placed his body over his shoulder. He saw someone else there just as he turned to leave. When he turned around, he saw Hanabi, Hinata's sister, launch herself at Naruto, but he left the area before she could hit him. When he resurfaced, he saw Gaara atop the tree where they had previously been. Upon glancing back towards the compound, he saw that Hanabi had departed, presumably notifying every possible force on Konoha. We need to go, now. Gaara said, and Naruto nodded in response. They turned around and departed, Hiashi resting on Naruto's shoulder. They traveled back to their village for a day and a half, and when they arrived at the gate, Hinata was waiting. Hinata wasn't supposed to be there at that particular moment. Naruto, what is this? Said Hinata, gazing at her father's corpse resting on his shoulder. I can explain this. As he placed Hiashi on the ground, Naruto spoke. Without uttering a word, Hinata simply left the area and ran in an undetermined direction. Gaara, take him to Tsunade. As he walked away to catch up with Hinata, Naruto said. It didn't take long for him to locate her standing next to a lake and gazing out to sea. Hinata, listen to me, there is a reason behind what I did. Naruto said as he walked up to her. And what might that reason be that made you lie to me? Hinata turned to look at him and said. We could make use of the data he provided. He must also pay for the harm he caused to you throughout your entire life. As he approached, Naruto spoke. And you decided to keep that a secret from me. Stated Hinata. I desired to keep you safe. Furthermore, I was unsure of your reaction or even whether you would find all of this acceptable. If you had known this would happen, I didn't know if you would even let me go. Naruto spoke, and she smacked him hard across the cheek. Do you really believe that after all these years, I don't want him to pay for what he did to me and everyone else? As much as you want to hurt him, so do I. And I gladly would have assisted you in my own kidnapping of him. However, you chose to leave after lying to me. Naruto, I want no more lies in my life. I've experienced enough hurt and lies. With tears welling up in her eyes, Hinata said. And I promise not to lie to you ever again. Never. I swear there won't be any more secrets between us. And I sincerely apologize for having to mislead you on this. It will not occur once more. I promise you that. As he drew her into his embrace, Naruto said. You promise? As she drew him in and put her arms around him, Hinata spoke. I swear. No more lies or secrets. Naruto said, embracing her closely. Hiashi needed several hours to regain consciousness. He awoke in a pitch black chamber, bound by chakra bindings to a chair that prevented him from moving or bending. This location, wherever it was not close to Konoha. Where the hell am I? Hiashi screamed, hoping to hear back from someone. In a place you wish you never stepped foot on. As he emerged from the room's shadows, Naruto spoke. You are so daring? Are you aware of who I am? Shouted at Hiashi, to which he received a blow to the side of the head in response. In Konoha, you are a douchebag. You are in really deep shit here, and you are a bigger douche than you were before. Naruto said. So now you will torture me or something? Hiashi grinned. And what would you get from that? Happy. You only need to be alive to provide the information that my friends need. However, being healthy is not a requirement, Naruto said. But first, I have to show you something. Naruto said, waving at someone to emerge from the shadows. Hinata and Neji were there. Hi, father. Hinata uttered these words while looking down at Hiashi in disgust. This is where you hid, then. To join him, did you betray your clan and village? It makes sense why I have always denigrated the two of you. Declared Hiashi. We've finally managed to get out of the jail you called a clan. And you're not able to control us anymore, surprise. Neji said this while taking off the bandage covering his forehead to reveal a clear forehead free of any seal. That is impossible. With his jaw ready to drop, Hiashi spoke. For Naruto, it is not. Hinata said, planting a kiss on Naruto. And the two that you believe to be failures are now at liberty here. And now that that's resolved, it's past time I gave you the horror treatment. Naruto said, removing his shirt. He shut the door after Hinata and Neji departed the space. He immediately freed Hiashi from his restraints, restoring his chakra. Hiashi just hit the air instead of waiting to launch himself at Naruto. He turned around to find himself thrown across the room by Naruto's punch. Hiashi was about to get up when he felt a powerful kick to the side that sent him flying and breaking his ribs. Hiashi began spitting blood from his mouth. Hiashi attempted to reach out and grasp Naruto in order to pull him down, but Naruto grabbed Hiashi's arm instead. He pulled Hiashi to the center of the room, stepped on his back, and forced both of his arms to come towards him, ripping the rotator cuffs from their sockets and causing Hiashi to fall to the ground limber. The room was already filled with agonized screams. Naruto placed his foot over Hiashi's hand and stepped hard, breaking Hiashi's fingers and hand bones. He then repeated the action over his entire body, crushing his arm bones beneath his foot and exposing some bone spikes above Hiashi's skin. He then moved on to his other arm in the same manner. This is a lot of fun. It's fun for me. Are you in? As he covered Hiashi's ear, Naruto spoke. How did you say that? With all of that blood coming out of your mouth, I didn't hear you. Naruto chuckled. All right. Continue with the show, Naruto said. Naruto turned him around and gave Hiashi 2 quick stomps on his knees, completely breaking his kneecaps. Next, he continued to trample his shins until his bones were reduced to dust beneath his feet. Then his ankles were destroyed by his shins following them. Even though I enjoy tearing you apart, you will still require your jaw in order to speak. And I will personally rip your skin off your body if they tell me you didn't want to tell them what they need. I'll see you later. To ease the pain, simply take a stroll. Hold on. You're unable to walk at all. Naruto laughed as he exited the room, leaving Hiashi lying on the ground with blood all over his body and excruciating pain. Tsunade, along with almost everyone else, greeted Naruto as he stepped outside. If you ask him, he's even willing to sing the information. I need to break a few more things, so let me know when you're through with him. Naruto spoke as he took Hinata's hand and walked out of the room with her. Walking all the way to the island's western beach, the two of them left the area. Both of them took a seat on the beach's heated sand to observe the setting sun. You were there the whole time, weren't you? Declared Naruto, gazing at the setting sun. Indeed. With her head resting on his shoulder, Hinata remarked, I saw and heard everything. I want you to know that everything he did to you throughout your life is why I did it, and that's why I did it. For every time he underestimated you and made fun of you. And I'm still a long way from being over him. As he turned to face Hinata, Naruto spoke. I know. With a cuddle at his neck, Hinata said. Naruto asked, so, what do we do now? We could continue in this manner. It doesn't bother me. As Hinata leaned even more in Naruto's direction, she spoke. We better find a shade then, or this sun will kill us. Naruto spoke as he lifted her into his arms and moved in the direction of a few trees. With a playful tone, Hinata remarked, I can walk myself, Naruto. I am aware. However, I enjoy cradling you in my arms. As he drew her in closer, Naruto spoke. Now you are just spoiling me too much. Giving him a quick swat on the nose, Hinata said. Just a bit. Said Naruto, sitting beneath the shade of a tree with Hinata facing him on his lap. What is next for us? As she lay down beside Naruto's corpse, Hinata spoke. In all honesty, I have no idea at all. However, I am certain that I will never leave your side. As he ran his fingers through her smooth hair, Naruto said. Oh. I nearly forgot. While you were away, I developed a new jutsu with Gaara. Said Hinata, casting an enthused glance at Naruto. Are you serious? Next, present it to me. Naruto said, grinning at her. Hinata stood up and focused, releasing her Tensigan powers and surrounding her body with a blue aura. She placed her hand on the ground, began to raise it, and the ground rose up and took on a shape in response. She lifted her hand to her waist and held it there for a short while before the rising earth assumed the shape of an unidentified animal. Naruto stood up and said, That's awesome. Before giving her golem an order, Hinata said, Watch this. Hit this tree. Hinata gave the order, and the golem carried it out. His fist tightened, splintering wood everywhere as it struck and destroyed the tree. Wow. Was all that Naruto could say, his mouth falling open. Cool, right? As Hinata turned the golem back into regular dirt and dismissed it, she said to herself. That was amazing. As he gathered Hinata in his arms, Naruto spoke. Proud of me? Stated Hinata. Always was. Naruto answered, his lips meeting hers. They fell to the ground, Hinata perched on top of them, kissing. While they continued kissing, Naruto reached under her shirt, grabbed the hem, pulled it up, and removed it. His mouth moved along her shoulder, down her neck, and from her lips. His lips stopped in the middle of her shoulder, and he began to lick and kiss that spot until he pushed his teeth forward and gave her shoulder a hard bite that caused blood to flow and Hinata to scream in agony. What was that for? Hinata said, perplexed, her shoulder stinging. For this. Naruto uttered as he drew a design across Hinata's shoulder using her blood. It began to glow red and eventually settled into a crimson hue akin to a tattoo. What is this? Hinata said, gesturing to the tattoo covering her shoulder. This implies that even though I'm far away from you, I will be aware of how you're feeling. I will be aware of your pain and will be there to assist you whenever needed. When I notice you're depressed, I'll make an effort to lift your spirits. And when you're happy, I'll know it, and that will make me happy too. Naruto said, petting her cheek. Without uttering a single word, Hinata threw herself at Naruto, tearing at his lips as though it were her final resort. She tore his shirt in two while holding onto his chest with her hands. She reached out and grabbed the hem of his pants and pulled them down, revealing his erect member. She stood up for a brief moment, removed her panties and underwear, then positioned herself atop Naruto, descending over his shaft, reaching the brim, and letting out a high moan. Questioning. Orochimaru, that sneaky bastard. Tsunade punched the closest wall, shouting her. So we had been serving Orochimaru ever since we returned Sasuke? Shikamaru, who may have shown interest for the first time in his life, said. It's true. Orochimaru got Kakashi's body. Instead of Sasuke's. Hiashi continued to spit blood in the middle of his sentence. And throughout it all, you were aware of this? You be asterisk tard. Yelled Kiba, who tried to launch himself at Hiashi but was restrained by Neji and Killer Bee. You were the ones who didn't realize it. Smirking, Hiashi said. You even dared to grin. I'm going to kill you. This is the reason my dad passed away. Ino, who had picked up a kunai, threw herself at Hiashi with the intention of severing his throat. Tsunade grabbed her and held her in place. When Naruto returns, you're going to wish that I had allowed her to kill you. Let's go, everyone. Tsunade gave the order, and everyone left the room, leaving a crippled Hiashi in their wake. After venturing outside, they encountered Naruto and Hinata, who had returned from their walk. Did he sing? Naruto stopped in front of everyone and spoke. Yes. A full song, Tsunade uttered. Well? As he waited to hear what Hiashi had to say, Naruto said. Tsunade then told him everything he had said since his departure. Naruto was losing it more and more as Tsunade went on to tell him everything, and the more he wanted to go in there and break his neck, the more he felt like losing it. But he knew, deep down, that Hiashi had to pay. After Tsunade had finished briefing him, he simply strolled past everyone and returned to Hiashi's location. He hauled Hiashi through the room until he reached the wall at the far end, grabbing him by the leg. With a gesture of his hand, golden chains emerged and encircled Hiashi's leg. Lifting his hand, the chain trailed behind, lifting Hiashi off his leg and pinning him to the wall with his head lowered by one leg. Naruto left him like that and took several daggers out of his pocket. He began tossing them at Hiashi, making sure to strike him precisely so as not to injure him beyond recognition. His goal was not to kill him, but to inflict a great deal of pain. He cut himself more severely than paper cuts as he threw them across his skin. He kept doing this until he ran out of daggers, at which point he hung a chopped Hiashi from his leg. "I'll see you later." This was only the beginning. "The main course is quite distant," declared Naruto, abandoning Hiashi to hang like a swine in a slaughterhouse. A week had gone by since Hiashi was imprisoned and the truth about what had really happened in Konoha over the previous 3 years was discovered. Additionally, Tsunade was finally assigning tasks to everyone this week. As she had previously mentioned, the majority of them were assassination missions. The majority of them had successfully completed their missions and were on their way back. Before the missions were assigned, Naruto made sure that everyone would have a seal applied to them, making it appear as though there was an emergency. By applying a chakra to the seal, anyone would be notified when a teammate was in danger and would know where they were so they could help them whenever needed. At this moment, Kiba, Ino, and Akamaru had just returned from a covert operation. They were required to spy on a landowner, get to know his customs and habits, as well as any plans he had to undermine the landlord who had requested this assignment, and then report back to Tsunade. Now that the mission was complete, they were headed home. Because of Ino's ability to transfer her mind to birds and snoop on their target, the mission had gone extremely well. They were happily jumping from tree branches when Ino noticed 5 chakra signatures approaching them quickly, one of them more quickly than the other 4. "Kiba. Take a look." She was knocked out cold before she could finish after a punch struck the side of her skull. "Ino." Kiba, who had run towards Ino and the assailant, screamed, but was knocked down to his knees by a powerful blow to the abdomen. He was struck again, knocking him unconscious, as he attempted to raise his head to face the assailants. Soon after, Akamaru was disposed of, with a large blade cutting down his neck and severing his head from his body. "Tie them up." The 5 member group leader said. Island Rouges. Naruto was moving in Tsunade's direction. His instincts were warning him that something was off, and for the most part, they were correct. When he arrived at Tsunade's office, he saw that Tsunade was working on some documents. "Naruto. Why have you come here?" Tsunade said. "I was just checking to make sure everything was going well. I simply want to put an end to this feeling by knowing that everything is fine." As he took a seat, Naruto spoke. "Everything is in order. With the exception of Kiba and Ino, who ought to return by the end of the day, every team that participated in missions has returned." "What's happening, Naruto?" Tsunade said, growing apprehensive. "I have a gut feeling that something is off. Perhaps it is nothing, perhaps it is something. I'm not sure." Naruto said, rubbing his chin. "Everyone in this room will look after themselves. It is insignificant. Proceed now." Tsunade said, returning to her work on the papers. As he stood up and walked away, Naruto said, "If you say so." Reunited with Ino and Kiba. As Kiba realized he had his arms and legs bound, he was beginning to come to. Additionally, he realized those were chakra bindings, which prevented him from making a distress call. Glancing around, he saw Ino unconscious and strapped to the ground, with dried blood dripping over the side of her head. "Looks like he came back to his senses," a voice said. He turned to face the source of the voice and saw a tall, skinny man with white hair and a big sword slung around his back. "So it seems." Another voice spoke, and Kiba was able to identify it right away. It was Sasuke Uchiha's property. "You!" Kiba exclaimed. "You will pay for this. Now unwind. I want to spare you from your mutt's fate," declared Sasuke, displaying Akamaru's head to Kiba. "No," Kiba exclaimed. "I will fucking kill you all," he shouted. "How will you go about doing that?" You can't move a muscle because you're bound. I'll ask you a question, and you'll respond, so it doesn't have to be any more gory than it already is. It won't be attractive if you don't," said Sasuke, drawing his sword. "Screw you." Kiba spit in his face and said that. "Where is Naruto?" As he whipped the spit out of his face, Sasuke said, "Kiss my ass." Kiba smirked and said, "If that's the way you wish to perform it. Could you please tend to our sleeping lady over there, Jugo?" Sasuke said. The large man with orange hair, Jugo, approached the unconscious Ino, grabbing her garments and ripping them apart piece by piece. "Not at all, number. Put an end to this. Give her some space. Avoid doing this." Kiba yelled at Sasuke. "You are aware of what has to be done to get him to stop. And he will continue if you remain silent," Sasuke said, gesturing to Jugo, who was abusing Ino's body and had taken off her bra and shirt. "Simply stop. He is on the deserted island of Uzumaki. There he is. Simply stop. Give her some space." Kiba hung his head and wept, saying this. "As you can see, it wasn't too horrible," Sasuke said, caressing Kiba's head. "Jugo, Suigetsu, enjoy yourself to the fullest with Ino. We return to Konoha tomorrow." Sasuke turned to leave, heading in the direction of Sakura and Karen, while Jugo and Suigetsu undressed and threw themselves at Ino, who had just regained consciousness. "Kiba. What is happening?" shouted to Ino, but she was cut off when a hand went over her lips. Reunited with Naruto. Hinata was soundly asleep behind Naruto, who was perched on the bed's edge. He still hadn't managed to get even a minute of sleep as dawn approached. He was awakened by that feeling in his gut. He was having trouble putting this feeling into words, so his mind was racing. The sensation of a hand resting on his shoulder soothed him. "Naruto. What's that?" Hinata gave him a backward hug while speaking. "I haven't been able to shake that feeling away from me." Naruto kissed her hand and spoke. "Go on, please. Naruto, you must get some rest. Since they are sealed, they should have warned us if something had happened." Hinata lowered her head over his shoulder and spoke. "What if someone found a way to stop my seal?" Naruto spoke, giving her a worried look. "Now let's search for them. Come on, please." As Hinata got up and started getting dressed, she said. "This way you will get your relief," stated Hinata. "All right. Come on, let's go," Naruto said while putting on his clothes. They both left the location shortly after. As soon as they left the island, Hinata turned on her Byakugan and Naruto entered Sannin mode in an attempt to speed up the process of tracking down Ino and Kiba. Hinata tried to gather herself as soon as she saw them with her Byakugan, but she was unable to do so after it took them almost 2 hours to finally bring them within range. "No. It's not possible." As tears streamed down her cheeks, Hinata said. "Hinata, what is it? Tell me." Naruto spoke, but Hinata simply quickened her pace, so he received no response. He trailed behind, and in no time at all they arrived at their goal. Naruto exclaimed as he raced to join his allies, "Oh number." It was a terrifying display. Akamaru's severed head was on one side, and Ino's bloody, nude, and bound body was on the other. Kiba, who was nearby and had obvious signs of being beaten, was covered in blood on his face. He ran to Hinata, who was keeping an eye on Ino. Without any delay, he removed his shirt and covered Ino's nude body with it. "Is she? She is still alive. However, her heart is weak." Hinata uttered these words while sobbing over Ino's lifeless body. That knowledge relieved him, so he went to see how Kiba was doing. He released his restraint and allowed him to lie on the ground while he gently shook him in an attempt to rouse him. He opened his eyes eventually, though it took some time. "Kiba, Kiba. Are you present?" Naruto said, giving him a gentle shake. Ino. Kiba said. "She's still here. She'll be fine." "Who carried out this?" uttered by Naruto, who was growing increasingly irate. Sasuke. Kiba said this before slipping back into unconsciousness. Naruto was eager to pursue Sasuke and destroy him after learning this new information. But he was aware that he couldn't abandon his allies in this manner. Their safety came first, even though it was too late to say it. As he embraced Kiba, he realized Hinata had similarly embraced Ino. He created 2 additional clones to assist with Akamaru. They then made their way back to their location. They hurried to Tsunade's house as soon as they arrived on the island. Naruto slammed the door as soon as they arrived, not even bothering to knock. "Tsunade!" yelled Naruto while putting Kiba down on the living room couch. "What the?" Tsunade was about to scream at Naruto for breaking into her home when she suddenly changed her mind. "What happened with them?" Tsunade yelled as she noticed Hinata laying down Ino's nude form. She hurried over to Ino right away. She was sexually assaulted. And although Akamaru was dead, he was beaten. "Sasuke was the one," stated Hinata. "God damn it." Tsunade began tending to Ino's internal wounds and screamed. Naruto was unable to stay there. He knew there was only one thing he could do to get even with them. After that, he rallied everyone by going from house to house. In just a few minutes, he had everyone in front of him and prepared. Despite the fact that telling them what had happened hurt, he did so. He sensed their growing enmity and the killer aura surrounding them. "We intend to exact revenge on them. Nobody goes unpunished for even slightly hurting one of us, much less doing what they did to 3 of our allies. Everyone who sent him after us, Sasuke, everyone who helped him, everyone who will die. We are going to war, so I want you all to be prepared now. And until every target is eliminated, we won't return here," Naruto said. "We are all ready and we are all with you," Gaara said. "All right. Matsuri remains in this place. Together with Tsunade, Shizune, and Hinata. You remain here to aid Ino's and Kiba's recovery. Here, too, you will have 3 tails. Recognized?" Matsuri nodded and Naruto spoke. "Take what you need and in 30 minutes we go. Naruto is finished." Gaara and Matsuri stood there while everyone else went to get their belongings from their homes. "Be careful. I'll be back." Gaara encircled Matsuri with his arms, saying this. "I have no doubt that you will. We'll be here waiting," Matsuri said, rubbing her stomach and planting a kiss on Gaara. "Not in a way. You and I are going together," yelled Hinata in Naruto's direction. "You're not. I require your presence here. I have complete faith in this person to keep you safe while you are here." Using his hands to steady Hinata's face, Naruto spoke. "Tsunade is capable. Let me assist you in battling those cretins." Hinata spoke while holding his hands. "Tsunade is quite busy taking care of Kiba and Ino. Matsuri is also expecting. Ensure their safety. Please," Naruto said, giving her the endearing look she couldn't help but return. "All right. All right," Hinata said, giving up. With a discreet kiss, Naruto said, "Thank you." After obtaining the last few items, Naruto was ready. He bid her farewell with a kiss before heading out to rejoin the group. They all appeared prepared and were wearing their battle gear. "Everyone ready?" Everyone nodded in agreement when Naruto spoke. "All right. Let's go slaughter those bastards and exact revenge on our comrades," said Naruto as he led the group of people out of the gate and hurriedly made their way over to Konoha, with the sole intent of getting even. After arriving in Konoha with his group, Sasuke went directly to Orochimaru to inform him of the situation. He and his team arrived at his office and walked right in. "That bitch's son is on Uzumaki Island. That's his hiding place." Sasuke slammed his hands on the desk and spoke. "That's where the rat hole is, then. How did you find this information?" Orochimaru said, getting to his feet. "I made his friend give it to me. It wasn't too difficult. So what should we do next?" With his arms folded, Sasuke said. "Well, first we..." There was a loud explosion, cutting him off. When he turned to face the main village gate, a thick cloud of smoke could be seen emerging through the window. "What the hell was that?" As they joined Orochimaru and peered out the window, Suigetsu said. When a loud yelling was heard, their question was answered. "Wow. Come on, get over it." Naruto's yelling could be heard from the location of the explosion. "That's him. He pursued us," declared Sasuke, getting ready to leave. "You sure it's a good idea to go out?" declared Jugo. As soon as he finished speaking, A flying wave of chakra struck the Hokage tower, causing it to become unstable and eventually collapse floor by floor. That answers your question. Before they fled the tower for a more secure location on the ground, Sasuke said this. Naruto and his group suddenly materialized around them as soon as they made contact with the ground. Together with Neji, Tenten, Shikamaru, Temari, Kankuro, and the rest of the group, all 8 of the Jinchurikis were present. All right. Observe the person present. Orochimaru said, erecting himself. Orochimaru, show off your face. It's you, as we all know. Gaara said. Well, if you insist. Orochimaru uttered those words as he tore off the skin that gave him the Kakashi appearance and emerged looking normal. So Hiashi spilled the beans. Orochimaru smirked viciously as he spoke. Pulling out his sword, Naruto said, it was rather easy. Orochimaru lunged towards Naruto while assuming a fighting stance, his sword emerging from his mouth and aimed directly at the boy. But a mysterious guy blocked it, deflecting it with his forearm protectors. It turned out that guy was Jiraiya. This just keeps getting better and better. Orochimaru said while licking his lips. It's over for you, Orochimaru. Jiraiya said. Well, let's find that out. Said Orochimaru, who snatched the sword and charged at Jiraiya. Their apprentices then followed, with the swords of Naruto and Sasuke clashing as they threw daggers at one another with their eyes. Which one of you hurt my friend? Gaara said, observing Suigetsu's sly smile. So it was you. Gaara began to raise sand all around him and said this calmly. Yes. Tell me not that she didn't have fun. Suigetsu said as he withdrew his sword and held it out to Gaara. You all will regret it in a few seconds. Killer Bee, who was already developing a red Biju tail, said as much. He stopped waiting and moved directly toward Suigetsu, sending little electrical charges out of his body. Jugo materialized in front of Suigetsu as he was getting closer, fully cursed and prepared to strike Bee, but a sand punch sent him flying instead. That gave Killer Bee the opportunity to move forward and lock several of his swords with Suigetsu's enormous one. The sound of steel hitting steel and agonized screams filled the room as everyone began fighting one more. Sasuke and Naruto swung swords at one another, blocking each other's blows. You ought to have been defeated by Kakashi that day. However, I suppose he was too much of a pussy to break you up. As he entered the first stage of the Cursed Seal, Sasuke said. Why don't you try it yourself then? With his sword on his back, Naruto opened his arms and taunted Sasuke. Naruto smirked and said, give it your best shot. With pleasure. With Chidori in his hand, Sasuke said as he activated his Mangekyo Sharingan and charged forward. He was shocked that he missed his target when he suddenly thrust his arm towards Naruto and met only nothing. Dispelling Chidori, he pulled back his arm, keeping his eyes peeled for any approaching attack. I believed I requested your best shot. That was quite pitiful. Naruto said as he approached from behind, trying to kick Sasuke in the head, but Sasuke blocked it with his forearm. You have seen nothing yet. With a cursed mark released, Sasuke entered the final stage of the mark's development, growing longer hair and developing 2 wings out of his back. Naruto withdrew his kick, stepped aside, and raised one hand to form a Rasen Shuriken. However, it wasn't your typical one. It was dark purplish in color and released black sparks that resembled thunder. Naruto leapt slightly into the air, hurled it toward the sky, and then let it explode, darkening the sky and creating a stormy atmosphere above them. Soon afterward, Naruto changed into his Biju form. A moment later, they both launched themselves at each other. Naruto got the better of him, winning the first punch and causing Sasuke to lose some balance. Naruto then took advantage of this moment to quickly land a palm strike to Sasuke's back, sending him flying. Sasuke quickly got back up and immediately pursued Naruto. Conversely, Gaara remained stationary and unflinching while Jugo, in full curse mode now, launched himself at Gaara with all of his might in an attempt to shatter Gaara's sand shield. A wave of sand would rise as soon as Jugo approached Gaara, halting his attack and carrying him off. Additionally, each time Gaara used the sand coffin in one of his limbs, Jugo immediately recovered and resumed attacking Gaara. Orochimaru was facing Jiraiya, who was on top of Manda and atop Gamabunta. The 2 summonings were bouncing off one another, ready to strike when the chance presented itself. Tell me, Jiraiya, was your student planning to commit suicide with this mission? Since you will. You are greatly outnumbered. With a sly smile on his face, Orochimaru spoke. Well, you are far more foolish than I thought. The numbers you count over us will vanish in an instant, as if they never existed. Tell me, then, what time it is. Jiraiya grinned and launched another assault. Now? What does that mean, exactly? Orochimaru said, looking bewildered but not so much that he could avoid Jiraiya's blow and still be hit. You will see. Jiraiya said, carrying on with his assaults. It was the greatest time of Killer Bee's life. He was giving Suigetsu the ultimate kick in the ass. He had covered his skin with a black lightning layer to make his strikes even more lethal ever since he realized he was a bitch when it came to electricity. Every time Suigetsu tried to attack, Killer Bee would punch or kick him, causing convulsions whenever electricity came into contact with his damp skin. What is the issue? Are you really that weak against someone twice your size now? Bee spoke up, delivering a quick blow to the abdomen that caused Suigetsu to lose consciousness and drop his sword. Bee seized the chance when it presented itself. He held it in his hand, turned it sideways, and pointed the tip towards Suigetsu. Have you yet to regret it? What have you done to a helpless girl? How did you ruin her life? Said Bee, lightning flashing across the massive blade. How could I look back on it? I had never felt better in my life. Blood spurted from his mouth as he finished his sentence, and all he could think was that the world was beginning to look strange. Bee, who had earlier been facing Suigetsu, was now behind him with his blade covered in blood. After turning around and wiping the blood from his blade, he turned to face the dead body and the severed head of his opponent, which lay a few feet away. He took hold of his head and fastened it to his belt, allowing it to dangle like a medal. He was determined to send Kiba and Ino reeling. Once he was done there, he continued to murder more assholes. Returning to Gaara, who was merely occupying his position and shielded from Jugo's attacks with his sand shield. A few other times, he had crushed his limbs, but he simply kept healing. He had time to consider ways to murder him because he was always kept safe. And now he had discovered the path. The only way to make it as excruciating as possible. He began to concentrate, directing his attention to the sand that had been inside Jugo after each of his crushing sessions, causing it to travel to a specific location within his body. Gathering it, he sent it first to his kidneys, crushing and wrapping each one in sand. Jugo let out a high-pitched cry and dropped to his knees, clutching his stomach in agony. He moved the sand from his destroyed kidneys to his liver, piercing it with his sand and causing massive internal bleeding, not giving him time to focus on his recovery. Jugo collapsed onto his face, unable to move other than to scream due to the pain. Jugo began to twitch on the ground as Gaara continued to crush one lung at a time, knocking the air out of his body. He moved the sand up his throat, through his skull, and into his brain after a short while of waiting. Initially, all he did was tap his brain with sand, causing his lifeless body to twitch beneath his hands. Then, one by one, slowly, he killed every part of his body. After destroying his brain, Jugo's body just lay there, unable to move, but somewhat alive due to the weak heartbeat. It was time to serve his heart, the main course. He firmly wrapped his heart in his sand and began to pull it out of his body, causing it to separate from his veins and arteries and gradually burst through his rib cage. At last, it sliced through his skin and emerged into the open. Gaara ordered his sand, brought the bloody heart into his hand, and crushed it firmly. He put it in a sack and went to assist his friends who were in need. With his tongue sticking out, Orochimaru removed his snake sword and held it in his palm. His swipe was blocked by Jiraiya's forearm guards, so he countered with a blow to his spiky hair, sending Orochimaru reeling backward. How do you think you will win a war against 8 Jinchurikis? Jiraiya said, springing back up onto his toad. No matter how strong they are, once outnumbered, they will fall one by one. Orochimaru said. Right now, we're not really outnumbered. It appears that 2 of your subordinates have already fallen. Jiraiya said. Is that how you see it? Then just take a quick glance behind you. Orochimaru said, remaining motionless. Jiraiya turned around and was met with a terrifying sight. It was Kabuto, Orochimaru's sidekick, with the armies of Rain, Iwa, and Sound trailing him. Undoubtedly, thousands of soldiers were present. Jiraiya exclaimed, shit. Shit indeed. Orochimaru spoke as he launched himself at an unfocused Jiraiya, aiming his sword squarely at his heart. Before Jiraiya, Blood flew into the air. He had been so engrossed in Orochimaru's formation of this army that he had failed to notice him thrusting his sword through his back. He looked down and saw the bloody tip of Orochimaru's sword protruding from his chest. He collapsed to his knees, blood streaming from his mouth. Jiraiya coughed up more blood as Orochimaru withdrew his sword from him. Jiraiya! Gamabunta screamed as he bent over to try to assist Jiraiya, but Jiraiya stopped him. It's all right, Bunta, this is my moment. And I'll accept my demise. But I'd like you to perform one last favor for me. Jiraiya said, wearing a subtle grin. Get me on top of the fort's head. Jiraiya said, gesturing to the mountain's Hokage's head. Gamabunta nodded, reached for Jiraiya's corpse, and jumped to the summit of the Hokage mountain. His tongue was rather long, so he sat Jiraiya atop Fort's head. I'm grateful, Bunta. I can no longer command you. You are free to go back home. Fighting next to you was an honor. Jiraiya said. Minato, I apologize. You've been let down by me. I tried, but I'm pretty sure I wasn't the godfather you were hoping for. So please pardon me. For now, that is all I am asking of you. Said Jiraiya, his blood spurting from his mouth as he observed the battlefield. Naruto and his friends were surrounded by a sizable ring of soldiers as reinforcements began to arrive all over the battlefield. After leaving the battlefield, Sasuke and Orochimaru joined Kabuto behind the soldiers. This put Naruto and his friends in the midst of everything. Everyone, right now, is the full Biju transformation. Get on top of a Biju, everyone who isn't a Jinchuriki, and offer them whatever assistance you can. Naruto spoke, and after he had finished, everyone obeyed his commands, changing completely from head to tail. Following suit, Naruto took on the form of the formidable Kyuubi. With their kunai out, the others leapt onto the back of the Jinchurikis. As they began their assault on the thousands of troops, standing back to back, they broke through their ranks one by one. The island. Kiba and Ino were being assisted by Tsunade and Hinata. They continued to tend to them, tending to all of their wounds and attempting to rouse them. Hinata's mind was elsewhere while they assisted them. She felt that something terrible was going to happen to all of this. And inside of her, that sensation was only intensifying. But she was distracted from her thoughts when she heard Kiba grunt from his bed. Kiba had begun to stir. She grabbed his hand and hurried to be by his side. Kiba. Are you able to hear me? With a slow gesture, Hinata helped him sit on the bed. Hinata, indeed. Where am I? Kiba said, glancing around before noticing Ino in the other bed. His cheek began to well up with tears upon seeing Ino. How is she? Kiba said, allowing tears to trickle down his cheek. Kiba, she is okay now. She's fast asleep. We looked after you. In an attempt to reassure Kiba, Hinata said. Where is everyone else? Kiba, who was still a little weak, tried to stand up and said as much. They are fighting, avenging what happened to you. Stated Hinata. They are squabbling. Then I ought to go assist them. Kiba said, attempting to get back on her feet but failing. Kiba, no. You remain here to assist Ino upon her awakening. You will be necessary to her. I'll head over to assist them, stated Hinata. All right, then. I'll never disappoint her again. Kiba said, turning to face Ino. All right. I'm going to leave right now, stated Hinata. Hinata left Kiba and ran as fast as she could toward Konoha. She darted between the branches as she ran through the forest. Returning to Konoha. Despite the fact that no one on the battlefield could match the Bijus' might, their overwhelming numbers worked to gradually push the Bijus back and even inflict some damage by attacking them. Naruto realized they wouldn't be able to hold onto this for very long. If he wanted his loved ones to survive and lead longer, happier lives, he knew what needed to be done. He wanted his closest friend to be present for the birth and to raise his child. Kyuubi, you understand what needs to be done, right? Naruto conversed with Kyuubi. Yes, I do. I want to know if you're prepared for it. Kyuubi said, glancing at Naruto. Is there anything else we can do? Kyuubi, too many people have suffered on my account. Declared Naruto. I suppose no one can prepare for death. Naruto is finished. I suppose you're correct. So let's get going then. Kyuubi said as she put her fist in front of Naruto. Naruto grinned and gave Kyuubi a fist bump in return. With a melancholy smile, Naruto said, "Get ready on my mark." Turning back to reality, Naruto surprised everyone by assuming the human form. "Naruto, what are?" Before he realized he was lost in the middle of the forest outside of Konoha, Gaara was saying. While glancing around, he momentarily found himself alone until Killer Bee materialized in front of him and vanished in the same instant. This continued until Naruto was the only friend still present. "Oh no, no, no. Naruto, don't do that." Gaara screamed and turned to run back towards Konoha. Though it wasn't long before he arrived, it was already too late. A wall made of chakra chains was constructed all around Konoha, trapping all enemy ninjas inside with the exception of Orochimaru and his subordinates. Konoha was constructed like a cage, with each chain meeting atop the village to form an impenetrable wall that prevented anything from entering or leaving. Naruto stood in the center of it, encircled by everyone else who was also trapped there. He simply stood there, frightening the living daylights out of everyone, without a single muscle moving. Knowing it was a sure trap for them, no one approached him while he was standing there for a few minutes. A few tense, perspiration-filled minutes later, Naruto raised his hands to display his gathered sage power, the purple hues spreading across his face and under his eyes. His eyes had a cross-like appearance, combining Biju power and wisdom. He lifted his hands and clasped them in front of him. "Forbidden Jutsu. Demonic Fury Release," declared Naruto, as the tattoos covering his torso began to glow intensely and appeared to have caught fire, causing his clothes to burn away and reveal his bare skin. A ninja attempted to attack Naruto, but as his sword approached the target, a shield surrounding Naruto threw the attacker away. Just as the jutsu was taking shape, Naruto sensed someone he knew was getting closer to him. He sensed that person was anxious and rushing to get there. Hinata was the one. He was confident that, given her current speed, he would have one final chance to see her face before having to say goodbye to her and break yet another promise he had made to her, never to leave her side. He sensed the jutsu beginning to take effect as Kyuubi's chakra and all the chakra he had gathered in sage mode came together and mingled with one another. It was joined, all of them in one spot, by his own chakra as well. For the jutsu to function, he had to give up one more force, but he was clinging to it for just a little while longer. Hinata arrived at her destination in a matter of seconds, but before she could calm down, a yellow chain wall stopped her in her tracks. She could see her destination in the midst of all of this when she activated her Byakugan. She knew something was wrong with Naruto's body and that it would not go well. She tried to hit the wall as hard as she could, but all she could do was get hit by her own strength, which sent her flying back. When she noticed Naruto turning to face her, she came to a stop. She kept staring into the face of the love of her life, tears streaming down her cheek. He did the next best thing, knowing that Hinata was too far away for his voice to reach her. Hinata could read lips, he knew. He then began mouthing Hinata his parting message. As he was finishing, Hinata felt herself give up on her knees and collapse to the ground, tears streaming down her cheeks and chin and pooling on the floor. After completing his message, Naruto released the one item he had been holding onto until he saw his love, the one item required to activate the jutsu. His vital force. As he did so, he experienced the most intense pain he had ever felt rush through his body. It was as if all the force that had been trapped in a single spot on his body had suddenly burst from every pore, unleashing a wave of chaotic demonic chakra around him. All that stood in its way was killed and destroyed as the explosion quickly spread in all directions, reaching its victims and scorching them until only fragments of their skeletons remained on the ground. Everything that was formerly contained within Konoha's walls has vanished from the face of the earth, as though it never existed. Miles of wasteland, smoke, and bones were all that were left. Naruto's corpse collapsed onto the ground, flat on his back, as everything within the circle was destroyed. Even though his body had not yet perished, anyone who had not been present would not have recognized it because it was just a body, every last detail burned into the flesh. The chains began to fade as soon as the body touched the ground. As soon as Hinata saw it vanish, she hurried over to Naruto. What was left of her reached him. She fell to her knees next to him and gave his lifeless body a hug while shedding tears on his burnt skin. After losing the ability to think any longer, she pumped air into her lungs and stuffed them into Naruto's mouth, then she immediately resumed pumping air over his chest. She continued walking until Gaara grabbed her and pulled her to her feet, holding her by the waist, without even sensing his hand on her shoulder or hearing him tell her to stop. "Hinata, I apologize. He has left," said Gaara, who, along with everyone else who had surrounded Naruto, was crying uncontrollably. "There is nothing we can do for him now. That's not possible. It isn't achievable. He is not yet able to leave." As Hinata broke free from Gaara's hold and returned to Naruto, she said this. The next thing that occurred to her was what she did. She collected all of the chakra that Hamura had given her and began sending it to Naruto's body. Eventually, she ran out of chakra and passed out next to Naruto's body. 8 months had passed since Naruto destroyed Konoha and gave his own life in the process. There, he was undoubtedly dead. However, the impossibility had occurred that day. Even though Naruto's pulse was very weak, the group was still able to bring his body back to Tsunade for additional treatment because Hinata had somehow, while pumping her own chakra inside his dead body, been able to restore it. Tsunade had to work non-stop for days on Naruto in order to restore his damaged chakra system. Tsunade's powers had been completely depleted, resulting in her reverting to her previous form. Now that his system was fixed, Naruto was still recuperating, and he was using various Tsunade creams and medications to help his burnt skin heal gradually. While Tsunade was assembling Naruto, Gaara grabbed the Jinchurikis and started looking for Sasuke and Orochimaru. They pursued them, following trails from the area that was once Konoha, until they arrived at their hiding place. They had no mercy at all for Orochimaru. As soon as they made contact with him and his group, they began pounding the area with Biju bombs. This left a massive crater where Orochimaru's hideout had once been, filled with the body parts of both Orochimaru and Kabuto, with their limbs scattered and their guts and organs spilling everywhere. A few of them were even missing. They had made their way back to the island, carrying Sasuke's nearly lifeless body all the way there before locking him up in a cell and letting him rot until he died a slow and agonizing death. Furthermore, Konoha's total destruction now serves as a warning to other nations not to meddle with them. Furthermore, not a single Kage had spoken to them. Everyone remained silent, hoping to avoid upsetting them and suffering the same fate as Konoha. 8 months later, Naruto was still lying in bed. Even though his skin had healed, he remained unconscious despite the fact that every part of his body had healed properly. With the window open and a gentle breeze blowing through, he was by himself in the room. Some distance from his room, a woman's screams had begun while he was there in a state of silence. Naruto's finger twitched, slightly moving his eyelids. He shifted even more as the screams grew louder, his eyes opening slowly before tightly shutting them again because the light was hurting them. When he opened them again, they began to acclimate to the light. Then he heard the screams once more. He tried to get up by lifting himself up, but his body was simply too sore to stand up straight. He stumbled forward as soon as he attempted to walk, but he managed to steady himself by leaning against the wall. He walked for a short while longer, grinding against the wall. Then the screams resumed, only louder this time. He pushed himself from the wall he was leaning on to the one in front of him after realizing it was coming from the opposite wall. The scream was coming from a different place this time, and he heard it again as soon as he got to the door where it was coming from. It was more like an incredibly loud cry from a baby. He reached for the handle of the door and turned it, letting himself inside and into the source of the deafening screams. He saw something that astounded him. Hinata was lying on a bed, her legs spread wide and her breathing heavily. Ino was standing next to her, holding a small baby that was still crying in her hands. When the baby was in Hinata's arms, it appeared to calm down, so Ino gave it to her. They noticed him on the door at that very moment. Stunned at where she was, Ino dropped the warm towels she was going to use to clean Hinata at the sight of him. Hinata wiped her tears and whispered, "Nah. Naruto." He tried to approach Hinata and was about to stumble when he sensed Ino's presence. He was pulled up by the arm and led to a chair beside Hinata's bed. Ino sat him down and stepped back, her eyes moistening. Naruto reached up and cupped Hinata's cheek, pulling her in toward him until their foreheads met. "Naruto. You are back." Hinata blurted out, unable to contain her tears. "Hinata, I'm back with you. I am because of you," Naruto said, petting her cheek. "I believed you were gone forever. Naruto, how could I survive without you? Without you, how could I raise our child?" Gazing at the infant in her arms, Hinata said. "Our child?" A startled Naruto questioned. "Indeed. Our infant daughter," Hinata said, lifting their girl slightly so Naruto could see her. The infant shared her mother's dark blue hair strands over her head, and when she opened her eyes, they could both see her ocean blue eyes. Without a doubt, she was Naruto's child. What will we name our baby girl? With a gesture of his backhand across his girl's cheek, Naruto asked. Hinata said, Kaseki. This day is a miracle and I want to name her that. Hinata completed. Today was undoubtedly a miracle. We managed to get Kaseki back and bring Naruto back. Ino said, shedding happy tears. Naruto said, hello there, Kaseki. Kaseki gave a gentle yawn and turned to sleep. I will leave you two kid as I alert everyone you are back. As she exited the room, Ino said. Naruto returned to petting Hinata's cheek after Ino departed, and Kaseki slept soundly in her arms. With all of his love, he gently pulled Hinata towards him and gave her a kiss. It was just their lips dancing together, no tongues or anything, but it was all they needed. When they withdrew, they were grinning. I missed that. Hinata uttered those words as she gave another quick kiss. After 2 months, Naruto had returned with all of his might. Now he was able to walk by himself. Since he'd been sleeping for almost a year, things had changed. Just as Gaara had done with Naruto for his son Aki, he had named Gaara the godfather of his daughter. Kyuubi was one thing that Naruto was now lacking in his life. He was aware that Kyuubi's next rebirth would most likely take years. Now, he was walking to a certain place with a bouquet of flowers in his hands. And soon after, he arrived. He stood in front of the memorial that the others had built for Jiraiya. He knelt in front of it and pushed the flowers aside. You were both of them for me throughout my life, even though I never got to be with my real parents. You never turned against me, even though I made a lot of poor decisions and even more mistakes in my life. You were present at all times. You assisted me in restoring this area to its former glory and establishing my own neighborhood. And it's all thanks to you keeping me on my path that lives are now lived here in peace. And for that, you have my eternal gratitude. By living my life and improving the lives of those around me, I hope to return the kindness you have shown me. Declared Naruto as he stood up and headed back to his family's house. When he arrived home, Hinata, Gaara, and Matsuri were in the living room. Aki and Kaseki are both dozing off. He took a seat beside Hinata and hugged Matsuri and Gaara while they carried on their conversation. They continued chatting about their newborns and other things until Gaara brought up a serious topic. Naruto. What should we do about Sasuke? Asked Gaara, causing the room to quiet down. I'll take care of him. Actually, I'll take care of him tomorrow. However, I'll do it alone, without the company of others. Naruto said. Why do you wish to work by yourself? The others undoubtedly want to see that bastard go too. Gaara said, perplexed by Naruto. Because I want you to sleep that night and not get hunted all night by the nightmares you would see. Naruto responded. I will still be attending. I'm not bothered. Gaara crossed his arms over his chest and spoke. You have the head of a mule sometimes. Naruto said while rubbing the back of his neck. You ain't getting rid of me that easy. Gaara said. Naruto said, okay then, tomorrow we deal with Sasuke. After that, it's resolved. We ought to move on now. Gazing at Matsuri, who nodded, Gaara spoke. If you need to, then we will see you later. Grinning, Hinata said. Next day. Gaara was trailing behind Naruto, who was yanking Sasuke by his collar. They were heading toward and ascending the steep hill. They kept climbing it until they got to a point where no one would bother to visit. Naruto looked around and grinned. This location was ideal. After severing Sasuke's hands, Naruto made him bend over and face the direction of the village. Raising his arms, Naruto asked Gaara to use his sand to block them in this manner, and he complied, keeping Sasuke's arms spread. He took a scroll out of his pocket and opened it, revealing two objects. One was an axe, and the other was an extremely sharp dagger. He took the dagger and moved in front of Sasuke, using it to elevate his face. You see, the reason I chose this location is the abundance of eagles. And you're going to become an eagle soon, believe it or not. And a bloody one at that. Naruto spoke as he moved to stand behind Sasuke.
That's it for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this great story. See you in the next one.